we've had our arguments, all of you, feel me? But
that's good.
Yeah, I say that all the time. It's good to have those arguments. It's good to have those things about what direction we should be doing. Or if you don't really see the vision and you have a different idea, it's like, it's good. And I say it's always good not to just have yes men around you, people that challenge you and what you're doing.
What's cooking, everybody? This one covered a lot. It covered a lot. I say it every week, but this one covered a lot. First 20, 30 minutes, we went into race and criminal justice and that whole system and everything that's wrong with that. We went into censorship right after that. Just rolled out of the gate hot here. Some groupthink in politics, minimum wage and women's pay along with black unemployment, the NCAA disgrace that it is not paying athletes, the Rich Paul rule, which if you haven't heard that one, that's an utter disgrace. We got into Amazon and power that's out of control, media narratives, LeBron, Meek Mill, Bobby Shmurda. We touched everything. This was a good one. This was a good one. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, I am joined in the bunker today for this conversation that happened by the one, the only, Mr. Myles Matthews. Myles is the founder of NBT, which stands for Next Big Thing, which is a media and marketing agency that also works on the personal management side of athletes and musicians. And I really like this guy's work ethic a lot. I've admired that from afar, and getting a chance to hear about it in the back part of this podcast where he talked about NBT and the projects there. Pretty cool. Love his perspectives. We'll definitely do this again. And by the way, you're going to notice that Myles, this son of a bitch over here, he may have kind of hosted some of this podcast. He's a real pro. He would give these nice, long-winded answers with all these details and everything, and then just subtly be like, Julian, I actually wanted to ask you about this, so let's turn to that topic. I'd be sitting over here like, motherfucker, this guy's taking over the goddamn bunker. No, but in all seriousness, I loved it. The reason that he was good at that and the reason it came so naturally is because Myles has co-hosted a podcast for 2 or 2.5 years now. It is called the Faces of the Future Podcast. I would highly recommend you check it out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And they also did just go to YouTube as well, so you can check it out there. And he co-hosts that with his buddies Shannon and Moose, who I think we're going to get involved here as well. And they're awesome. I mean, they don't leave any type of issue untouched, and it's very unpredictable where the opinions are going to be. I thoroughly enjoy it. I would encourage you to check it out. Anyway, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you're on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell button, and leave a like and comment on the video if you would, please. To all the people who have been leaving 5-star reviews with a comment on Apple Podcasts, you're killing it. It's amazing. It's a huge help to new listeners looking to come in and listen for the first time, or at least give it a shot to listen for the first time. So thank you for helping me build the community here. This is a pretty awesome thing we're doing, and I'm enjoying it, obviously, and all your guys' belief is pretty amazing. So if you haven't taken a second to do that, and you can add a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts and add yourself to that list of people, that would be awesome. That said, you know what it is. I'm Julian Dorey, and this is TRENDIFIER. Let's go! This is one of the great questions in our culture. Where is the nuance? You're giving opinions and calling them facts. You feel me? Everyone understands this, but few seem to do it. If you don't like the status quo, start asking questions. I was watching a video, I want to say this was a week or two ago, from your podcast, Faces of the Future.
Okay.
And it was on the death penalty.
Yeah.
And I think it was you and your guy Moose going at it.
Yep.
That conversation was interesting to me because the cut you had on there was like a minute or something like that, and it was giving me some of the points of view, and you guys were disagreeing on it. But morbid thing to start off with, but it's crazy to think about it, right? Like the idea of, oh shit, like someone could be found guilty by a jury of their peers, like 12 regular people, and then said like, all right, we're going to put you to death. It almost sounds like medieval,
Definitely. More than medieval. It's like our whole basis and premise of society is killing is wrong. But that all changes when you go into the jury of your peers. Why do you think that happens? Because I'm like, Why is there? It's like a double-edged sword. It's like you're contradicting yourself when it comes to the law. When the law is telling you what you can and can't do, but all that goes away once you get into that jury and you get into that courtroom. And now it's like,
oh, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? Like everything changes. Like when you're outside of that courtroom, killing is wrong. But once you step foot into that jury of your peers and you're in front of everybody, everything goes out the window.
So you're saying that the robotic nature of law and the process of law comes in and says, okay, according to the law, should X defendant be found guilty of Y crime, there can be K or L penalty. I'm just using other letters. K or L penalties, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe it's put them in jail for life, which is another crazy concept.
Yeah.
Or put them to death if you're in a state that allows that. So you're saying that because they're kind of trained by the judge says this is what the law says, there's this thing as a human that goes away that goes, okay, so we're allowed to make that determination. Okay, I guess that's how it goes.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. But why do you think that is? Why do you think everything goes out the window once you're in that state, once you're in that ecosystem of, all right, should this person go to jail for life or should they be put to death? When we're trained our whole lives, whether you're religious, whether you just go off of what society says, that killing is wrong, it's a sin or whatever it may be. But when it comes to that time to give somebody judgment, people are okay to give that green light to say, yeah, we're going to put you to death for whatever crime you did.
Damn, it's dense. That's so
It's
dense.
intense. It's crazy to think about. It's super crazy to think about.
On the one hand, you have to remember the people who are in that position, most of the time, they're found guilty. And I highlight most. They're guilty. There is the occasional times where they're not, which makes it even more frightening because you don't know which ones that is, right?
You don't.
And so there's the balance of, I guess, Crime and Punishment was the famous book, like Dostoevsky or whoever the fuck his name was, the Russian guy who wrote it, but where it taught Dostoevsky, I don't know, one of them, where he talked about you have deterrence and punishment, right? So you want to deter other people from committing these crimes. Like, look, if a serial killer is sentenced to death, you don't want other people being serial killers.
Exactly.
You have to show that there's a penalty for that. You can't just go around doing that. We're not just going to fucking have a kumbaya session and suddenly forgive.
Yeah.
But it's still, hey, those lives that were taken were taken. It is a human who's obviously deranged in that case in front of you.
Yeah.
To what point are we actually putting them in a system that's called the Department of Corrections versus...
And I have my own thoughts about the Department of the Corrections.
Oh, we'll talk about that
too.
Let's talk about that. But versus the concept of, well, let's punish the fuck out of him or her to make sure no one else does it. To me, my first reaction, let's take the extreme scenario, like a serial killer. My first reaction is, yeah, throw him in jail, lose the key, right? But then you think about it and you're like, well, what went wrong to get them to this point? And we're also living a really long time now. Is it possible that maybe this 25-year-old or 20-year-old who happened to just be really fucked up in a good system could potentially be okay when they're 50? I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor, right? But you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. It's like we don't know because we never allow it to get to that point, though. Like, we talk about our podcast, when Moose brought up the point, like other countries like Australia, they actually have a real correctional facility where people go to jail for killing somebody, but they'll go to jail for maybe 25 years. But that whole time they're in there, they're getting taught and trained or whatever to come back out into society so they're not acting the way they did prior to going in. If we actually had a justice system that did something like that, then I think we have a different conversation here. But because there's all these external factors when it comes to our justice system, when it comes to our jail system and all that stuff, where it's a money making thing, you need bodies in there, or you need or whatever partners they have when it comes to the bigger corporations that have money involved, we get away from all that.
We have to get away from that.
We have to get away from that.
That should be a side issue.
Yeah.
The whole private prisons thing?
Yeah, but that plays a part in why things like that happen, if you think about it.
Well, I would think it's more the part of, well, what's the benefit of putting a guy in jail 15 years versus 25? It's 10 years of revenue, right? Less the death penalty point, but it's time, man.
Yeah, it's time.
And it's like, to your point, they're not getting corrected at all.
No.
Prisons it's fucked up. It's really, I don't want to say laugh, but You see Department of Corrections. Like,
yeah. Think about all the stories you hear about people that go into prison and all the gruesome things that happen or what actually goes on and the lifestyles they have to live. Like, they're not in there reforming. I mean, you have your inmates and things like that. People in there that are actually like taking the time to sit down and think about the stuff that they did, the crimes they may have committed or whatever it may be. Because sometimes people are in prison because they committed crimes out of necessity, not because they wanted to. And people don't think about that. People just think they just group everybody into one lump sum and say, oh, you're in prison, you're bad, you did something, you did a crime. But let's peel back the layers here. What if someone's in jail for stealing something or robbing or whatever it may be, but the reason they did it is because they had 2 children that they had to feed, and they had no other resources or nothing else coming in to provide for them. So what they do, they had to make a way.
I have a lot of empathy for that. I think about those situations a lot. It's harder to think about that when it's a rapist or a serial killer.
Yeah, obviously you can't. Like I said, you can't.
That's
lump
not
sum.
necessity.
Yeah, you can't put everybody into one category.
Yeah,
and that's when you think about anything. So when I think of that aspect, you have to shine a light on that. But when you talk about the people that are raping, killing, whatever it may be, you have to handle them in a different light. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong. And that's what our society in general, in my opinion, is when you have that whole groupthink thing or whatever it may be, we kind of deter from that.
Yeah, I was just talking about a similar topic, and we're probably going right over the line of where we were in the last one when I was talking with Anthony Dapolito. We were talking about what that mentality of how crazy it is that there's determination on 5 or 10 years made in the snap of a finger during a 1 p.m. hearing on a Tuesday after a lunch where the judge had a little bit of gastric reflux or whatever. You know, that's hard, the concept, because we're all tribal as humans, right? Like we want the validation of the people closest to us, and we want the validation of society because there's a certain way that you get recognition. You do good, you get recognition. Sometimes some people are fucked up and they're like, you do bad, you get recognition. Let's do that, right? But that idea that the rest of society can support a system that then you go in to have your day in court, and instead of getting 5 years for something, and what is 5 years? I don't even know, right? Like, what is that? You get 15 years and you're just taken out of the court on a little courtroom camera. The door shuts behind you with the bailiffs or whatever the fuck they're called, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, no one hears from you again. No one knows what it is. And maybe you deserved it. Yeah. Maybe you did. It depends, to your point. It depends on the context. But it is... I've talked about this a couple times because it is something that once a year, usually, like maybe it's watching some YouTube videos where I just kind of watch how it goes down. And I go down that rabbit hole and I'm like, damn. You know, so I did that a few weeks ago, and I'm just watching some of these, and I'm seeing how fast they make these determinations.
They make decisions like crazy. Let's talk about this since we're on this topic right now. Have you watched the documentary about the Central Park 5?
You know what? I actually have only watched a piece of that.
Okay, so
I've never watched the full thing. But talk about this. This is a crazy story.
Yeah. So Central Park 5, basically, they were 5 young kids, young black men in New York City. Obviously, they were in the park with a whole bunch of guys doing whatever they do, what young kids do, goofing off, causing havoc, whatever it may be. But that same night...
How old were they? Like 14, 15?
14 to 17, I think it was. They were very young. Super young. And at the time, that same night that all that stuff was going on, a lady was raped. You know what I'm saying? Almost killed, to the extent she's probably beat to her life almost to death, but what obviously survived, whatever it may be. But when that case arrived and got to the limelight, when we talk about society and things of that nature, everybody was calling for the death penalty for 14 to 17-year-olds.
For 14 to 17-year-olds.
And the crazy thing about it is they had no evidence that these kids actually did anything. But because society and people that are in positions of power said this is what should happen, their lives were ruined. And when you watch the documentary, they go into detail about how each of them went through their process and things of that nature.
Wasn't there a separate documentary too where they all got like interviewed?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was a part of it.
I want to see that.
Yeah. They went into detail about all that stuff. But the grand scheme of things is when they showed that depiction of what actually went on, especially the oldest guy, I forget what his name was, but he was 17, so he got put into the adult prison. And yeah, a 17-year-old was grown man, whatever, got put in the solitary.
Can you imagine yourself at 17?
That's what I'm trying to say. And that brings me back to my point about the justice system and the way not just they treat everybody, but how they target certain communities and things of that nature. It's kind of, it's not kind of it is very wrong. And I think it's something that's I won't even say it's getting better, because you see these things that are going on in the world today, and it just seems like stuff is never getting better. It's just reoccurring. We think we get to a certain point where we're making progress, and then something else pops off, and it's back to square one again.
Yeah.
So when you hear things like that, based on this conversation that we're having, what do you think? What are your thoughts on stuff like that happens?
Well, I think the 500-pound elephant in the room is also, you have to look at it across different ethnic communities too. So one of the things, it was one of Malcolm Gladwell's books, I can't remember which, maybe it was Talking to Strangers, but we'll check that after. One of his books, he talked about how this artificial intelligence algorithm tracked judges. Mm-hmm. And look, I empathize. I can't imagine having that job. I would never want that job. Yeah. Right? You're a human. You have emotions throughout the day. Like I said, it could be 1 o'clock on a Tuesday. I said that a few minutes ago, and you're in a bad mood, and a guy gets an extra 5 years. You're a human, right? So that's where there's the downside to it. And this algorithm measured judges, I think it was when they were setting up bail or bond, and how much it would be for incoming cases. No one's found guilty yet, right? And it was more likely that with minorities, they were going to set the prices higher per crime. Yep. And it also just happened to be that, I think it was, I don't remember the numbers, so I don't want to say for sure, but the majority of the judges were white judges, right? So I look at things like that, and I see a system where there are some inherent biases where it may not be that people are prejudiced or bad people, but they're put in a position where they're so used to seeing certain things, especially in more crowded communities like cities and stuff. It's just true. More people, more monetary problems in one space, more ability for more crimes to happen. It's just a fact of life, right? So then they see that, and then as you get all that volume all the time, you start to make assumptions. So someone gets in front of you, and you go, and it's not like they say this in their head. I would never do. I'm sure some of them do, but it's not like a judge goes there and goes, okay, black male from Harlem. Okay, all right, this one probably did it. But there's a prejudice in their head that could say that exact thing, and they just don't know it. Yeah. So I think about the balance of and I worry about machines coming into stuff, but not to totally change the conversation here, but I think about the balance of where some machines and some technology can help level the playing field here, so that when people are brought up, a human being is brought up for X crime, whatever it is, there's kind of a set system that, like, okay, well, this is what the bail is, this is what the bond is, this is how the process plays out.
So you're saying the machine kind of can set the bail for whatever is going on or whatever it may be? Consistently. Meaning
everyone gets treated the same.
But can everyone really get treated the same if every situation is different, though? That's the question that you have to pose, though. Because when you bring machines in, it's like, all right, everybody's getting this, but every situation is not the same.
That's true.
And I wanted to go back to what you said about having that conscious, like, bias, whatever it may be. That's all about perspective, though. Like, when someone walks into the courtroom and you see someone and they don't have a fresh haircut, their hair's maybe, like, raggedy, their clothes are raggedy, whatever it may be, you may have an instant perception of them and perspective of them that's saying, who is this person? He can't be someone of high quality or whatever it may be. Yeah. And people always say, that's why people always use the quote, the first impression is the lasting impression. Because the first time you see someone and look a certain way, you're going to automatically have that stigma. They're going to automatically have that stigma around them that this is the way they are. And this person could be the greatest person in the world, but because you picture them as something that you've seen on TV or whatever it may be, you're not even going to give them that chance. And I think as humans in general, we have to get away from that thought process, get away from that ideology, peel back the layers and actually have a conversation with somebody, talk to somebody like me and you are talking. Like before we had a conversation, we didn't know each other, but we sat down and talked and got to know a little bit about each other, and now we're here today. Yeah. Like I could have just based you off of videos I saw and been like, oh, I don't like the way he talks. I'm not going to give him a shot, whatever it may be. You could have saw the videos I've talked about on my podcast and be like, what is this dude talking about? I'll never give him a chance to come on podcast and talk. But when you sit down and have a conversation with people, I bring the word perspective all the time, you gain perspective. That ignorance goes away. Yeah. And I tell people when it comes to racial prejudices and things of that. Like, if you don't know, that's one thing. If you have ignorance, that's one thing. But once I tell you what's going on and what's really happening, and you continue to act accordingly in the way you were before, that's when we have a problem.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that gets where people put the guards up is when things get painted in too broad a brush, right? So when people were coming out, like, I've talked about this before. Terrence Jones was in here. We did a long podcast on the whole aftermath of George Floyd and everything that was wrong there. Everyone in my life I knew, liberal, conservative, in between, nobody looked at that video and said, oh, that's not bad. Everyone looked at that and said, I mean, it's common sense. You look at that, well, yeah, the guy just choked him out on the ground with handcuffs on him, right? So there's a level to which people can look at something and be like, yep, that's not humane. But when you get beyond that and you get to some of the problems, there are mathematical problems that we've seen, especially with the relationship between police and different ethnicities in this country. But you get two schools of thought. You get the school of thought that goes, cops can do no wrong, law and order, yada, 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 totally ignore the problem. Then you get the school of thought that says silence is complicity, this is the most racist country in the world, everything's fucked up, all cops are bad. Call me crazy, but I look at these two sides and I go, you're both nuts. You know, and so what I like to do, and I wish more people were like this, and what it feels like is a lot of the people I bring on this podcast from across the political spectrum are more like this. But I want to be able to have the conversation, be like, well, that's not right and that's not right. What is? What is?
So how do you find out what's right, though?
You do this.
Conversation.
I wish everyone was required to have to do something like this with each other. Shut the door, go in a studio, put on headphones, and just talk.
And just talk. That's how, bro, a lot of things can be solved with simple communication. But people don't want to have that communication, whether it be because of ego, they don't want to look bad or be wrong. I tell people all the time, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. I'm wrong about I'm wrong about a lot of stuff. Yeah. I'm sure you've been wrong about a lot of stuff in your life.
Dude, sometimes a podcast will age bad in like 5 days. It's like, ooh, that one's still out there.
Yeah,
you know?
Especially in the podcasting world, bro. Like, the thing about that is everything's recorded. So we can go back 10 years, 20 years from now and be like, bro, I was totally wrong about this.
That was cold.
Or I'm spot on about this. I knew this was going to happen, whatever it may be. But that's just the world we live in. But you don't get to that point unless you talk about it. Express your opinions. You don't know if your opinion is crazy until you bring it out into the world. You don't know if your podcast is good until you present it to the world.
Yeah.
You feel me? And I feel like that's a lot of things. That's a big thing that holds a lot of people back. Is they don't want to be perceived a certain way to the rest of society because they don't want to, either one, they don't want to fail, or this fake persona that they put onto the world, they don't want that persona to be exposed for what they truly are.
That second point's so spot on. That was all spot on, but that second point, people are so afraid of what people would actually see if they were just themselves, which is so sad.
Yeah.
You know? And look, sometimes someone's unabashedly themselves and they should probably make a few changes.
Yeah.
That's a reality. And to an extent, all of us have traits that are like that. None of us are perfect. Mm-hmm. But I think social media and the connectivity environment, which has a tremendous number of positives that we don't talk about. We always focus on the negatives. But if you're looking at the negatives, one of them is that competition society, that comparison culture, and it affects you down to your opinion. And, you know, I would say I was proud of a lot of people across the political spectrum recently with some of the censorship stuff that went on, like with Trump and stuff.
Yeah.
Where I did finally see some people on the left who naturally hated Trump, totally get that, see them start to come out and say, well, that's not the solution. You don't silence people. You let, like, and the other thing is, with a guy like him, he was a walking case study on let him talk. He will shoot himself in the foot. You know?
That's a fact.
If he can't talk, then he can't shoot himself in the foot. And more people are going to sit at home and be like, you know, that fucking Trump guy, he really knew what he was talking. You know? Whereas the whole reason that people were so sick of him at the end, including people that voted for him, was because he just wouldn't shut the fuck up.
Yep.
You know? So it's like this circle where everyone wants to just prove a point because that's the popular thing to do, that they don't think about what they're really doing. And they also don't think about how it applies to them and what they actually think. That's scary because you said it earlier, like one of the first lines of the podcast. I love that you brought this up, groupthink. Groupthink is that. If I could describe the downside of social media in one word and the internet, it's groupthink.
Yeah, because when you see on social media, bro, someone will I could put up anything on social media. If one person, the right person, takes it and runs with it, it could be the most false thing I've ever said. It could be no truth to it. But if the right person gets a hold of it and pushes and say, this is the truth, and enough people retweet it, like it, and share it, and give their opinion and say it is the truth, it becomes the truth. That's the scary thing about social media. And the scary thing also is people only read headlines nowadays. They don't even do their own research. Yeah. So when people talk about fake news or whatever it may be on both sides of the spectrum, it's like, how do you know if it's fake news if you don't even read into it? A lot of people don't. And I ask people when it comes to the political spectrum and things of that nature, one side or the other, because we talk about this on our pod all the time, is like, okay, say you are a Trump supporter, say you're a Biden supporter. Why do you support them? And I sit there and wait. And wait. And most people can't explain why.
There are famous videos from 2008 and 2016 from the opposite ends, and you can go find them online. They're hilarious. Yeah. Where they talked in 2016, they talked to Trump voters. Yeah. And in 2008, they talked to Obama voters. And it's a gotcha thing, right? They're looking for, you want to talk about first impressions, they're looking at the most likely people in the crowd that they think is going to say something stupid. So it's not totally representative. But you see the same patterns where in 2016 you saw Trump supporters talk about all these reasons they love Trump, and the interviewers giving them all the things that like Obama was doing. Yeah. And they're like, no, Trump's doing that at the end. And it's like, okay. And then in 2008, they would ask people like why they were supporting Obama and then say, what do you think of his running mate, Sarah Palin? Oh, she's great. People get into their tribes where it's almost like they just identify with something. Yeah. And I do want to put an asterisk on Obama for this, though. One thing that's very important there is he was the first legitimate black candidate to get to the finals and actually be running for president.
Explain like it would be just so
as far as like he had a shot. Okay. Like when Al Sharpton ran, he had like 2% of the vote. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay. So he was the first guy where it's like, oh my God, we might have a black president. Mm-hmm. That was a forget what he stood for or what he thought. He was also following up like a very damaging presidency. So it was pretty easy to message something that sounded better. Mm-hmm. But when he came up, that was a socio-cultural moment for this country too. Definitely. And I remember my one grandfather, who's like kind of old school conservative guy, probably never voted for a Democrat in his life. When Obama was running, he was like, he's going to win. And what was the exact line? He was like, frankly, if I were black, and he was a doctor for years, he had patients of every race. He's like, if I were black, I would 100% vote for this guy. This is bigger than like what he thinks. And I remember thinking that because I'm like, God damn, like this guy's never voted for a Democrat in his life, but he's admitting that, and that's when I knew he was definitely gonna win. But you look at that, and there's some stuff that are bigger, but the point still remains of people, whether or not that was a big cultural thing. And then even with Trump, because he was an outsider, whether that was a big cultural thing to people, less to do with the race of him or whatever, because he wouldn't have been the first white president, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, there was this gravitation towards he's a nuclear bomb being dropped on this bullshit thing called Washington, D.C. So people aren't necessarily looking at what's the downstream ramifications of a Trump tax policy versus what's the downstream ramifications of Obama's Middle East policy or something. They're not thinking like that. They're just like, oh, that's my tribe. That's what I want.
Yeah, and to the tribe aspect for sure. Like I feel as though it's because representation matters, bro. If we want to go back to Obama, let's stick on Obama for a second because I can relate to that a little more than Trump. When you see somebody of color in my position, and you've never seen it before. Yep. And you see somebody get into the highest power of the land. That's what they call it, the seat, running the country. It's like now you see guys like me. I was in 8th grade at the time. I can be that. You feel me? Yeah. People tell us all the time you can be something, but until you see somebody that looks like you, maybe has the same interests as you in a position that you want to be in, then it becomes obtainable. And that kind of goes back to even my personal come up. When it comes to having nerve damage in my arm and playing sports and things of that nature, I knew certain things were attainable, but not until I saw Adrian Claiborne, who's had a long NFL career, played at Iowa. Mm-hmm. Not until my dad showed me him getting drafted. Look, there's someone just like you just got drafted to the NFL.
What'd you do to your arm?
I was born with brachial plexus palsy, which is like nerve damage. The nerve endings from your spine to your shoulder, it limits the range of motion in your arm. So
wow.
Yeah, so I can't even like lift my arm above my arm like that. But I can. Everything's reaction. Like I can catch a football, all that stuff.
So you're in here, like you can get a lot of power in that.
Yeah.
Got it.
So, like my whole life, I had to battle that. You feel me?
Yeah.
People telling me I couldn't do something. People saying that, oh, there's no one like you in making it that far. You can't get a scholarship to play football. I've probably attained every accolade you probably could in high school playing sports, and then even at the end of the career, people are still saying, well, we don't know if you compete at this level. You know what I'm saying? But I never let it get to me. Once my dad showed me it was physically possible, he literally made it a point. Look, he recorded it, DVR. We sat down there and watched it. Look, this guy's just like you.
That's so cool.
It became more attainable. Those are moments like that I remember forever. You feel me?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
it could be simple shit too.
Simple stuff.
It can be real like that, and that's a rarer condition, right?
Yeah.
Like not a lot of people are born with that, but you even still had like a couple examples of that.
Yeah.
You know, and so I agree with you 100%. It was so, and I don't mean to make it over tribal, but let's make it over tribal for a minute. It was very, very important that we had something like that happen.
Definitely, I agree 100%.
If it were 2021 and we still hadn't had a black president by now, I don't know how that would go down. Just hindsight being 2020, I mean, we already have enough problems, and we have enough issues that have been left unaddressed. And again, like some of it, it's like here or here, and like I think it's more here, but it doesn't change the fact that there's still all kinds of things that have been patterns that have existed for such a long time that, like, if you added to that, the positions of power still kind of look the same.
Yeah.
And they do to a certain extent. Let's be honest about that. They do. But you at least have some examples now. Even like someone who I think is a little crazy, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Like, she's not a white lady from New York.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, even something like that, you have to, regardless of what you think politically, you have to understand that. Like, she's from the neighborhood that she represents, too, I believe, right? Like, there's something you can't really take from that from the other people that live there because they're like, okay, one of ours, right? So I think that's important, but I do still try to cut, now that we've had at least like some happen, and now, you know, Kamala Harris is in there, she's the first female vice president, like some of these dams have started to break. I do at some point here want to start seeing the focus go more towards people actually understanding what they're voting for.
Yeah.
You know, like in this last election, I didn't vote for either of the presidential candidates. Couldn't do it.
Okay.
Just straight up couldn't do it. And that's my opinion, whatever. And I'm more of a cynic, admittedly. But, you know, the way I came to that decision was based on policy. Yeah. And then there was, let me amend that a little bit. There was a touch of it that was also based on the personal aspect of it, the representation. You know, you saw Trump really lose his mind after COVID happened. Right. So he was, I think it's fair to say by the end, he was unhinged. Right. Yeah. So that, did I ever think the guy was going to hit the fucking nuclear button? No. But like, was he stable? No.
No.
Biden can't talk. You know, like these things are issues for me. Outside of that, I'm a realist in that I do understand it's a big government. There are a lot of people below them. There's a lot of people around them.
A lot of people have their hands in what's going on, for sure.
Sure. So I could have still voted for one or the other, but when I'm looking at the policies, we've now just gone here, man. Yeah. Like, and if you're listening and not watching, my hands are far apart. There's nothing remotely here. And the people who from either side or even who are in the middle who try to point that out, their respective sides try to cancel them. Yeah. It's a two-side problem now with that. That's a problem.
Yeah, and my thing is, I hate the conversation that you brought up saying you didn't vote for either side, is that when people say, bro, you need to vote for the lesser of two evils. Why do we have to vote for the lesser of two evils?
To you.
Exactly.
To you. Yeah. Exactly.
Why does it have to be that way? Yeah. And then say you have your tribe, your peers, whatever. If you think in a different way than the people that are around you, whether it be your family members, your friends, whatever it may be, like a big thing in our community is if you're black and you vote Republican, you're looked at crazy. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like, it's just the way it is. Like I don't know if it's history, whatever it may be, but it's like if you're somebody that aligns with the views that are in that party, color, race, whatever it may be, shouldn't matter.
Why do you think I'll ask a harder question, pre-Trump, why do you think that was? Because that was a thing pre-Trump. Like in the black community, if you voted Republican, they'd be like, what the fuck?
That's a good question. I feel as though because when it comes to the Republican Party, they're more blunt about their feelings in how they go about doing things, if that makes sense.
Can you expand on that?
So with the Republican Party, they're like, all right, this is what we are. This is what you're going to get no matter what. And then like I'll use the example that Biden did. Biden said, if you don't vote for Democrat, you're not black. I was frustrated when he said that. Maybe I understood the context that he was trying to put it in, but it's like me personally.
That's with Charlemagne the God.
Yeah, it's like, bro, like I understand the point you're trying to get at, that you're saying the other party's not for us, whatever it may be, but how are you in a position to tell me that I'm not black because I don't agree with what you got going on? You feel me? And I'm not a person like to get into politics, whatever it may be, but like I'm just telling you how it made me feel.
Yeah.
You feel me? Like I should be able to listen to what one side has to say and listen to what the other side has to say and then make my opinion. And not you force feed me information saying like, if you don't agree with this, you're not this person. Especially the climate of our society today.
Do you think it's okay to disagree with both though too?
Yeah, bro. Bro. When we go back to the group thing, it's okay to have your own views. If you don't agree with anybody's going on, bro, don't vote for them. Yeah. It's our right to vote or not to vote. That's how I feel personally. You know what I'm saying? So, like when we go to, if you don't agree with them, you don't have to cast your vote for them. You can vote for whoever you want to vote. If you voted for somebody else, it's your right. It's your right. It's your right. That's how I think about it. But I mean, let me ask you this, because this is another question that's brought up to me. And
sure.
When it comes to working for somebody or voting for a party, whatever it may be, would you rather work or vote for somebody that is blunt and tells you the truth? Say I'm a black guy and I'm super racist, whatever it may be. I tell you I am, but I'm allowing you to get your money, make your money, whatever it may be. I don't sugarcoat it, but you're allowed to do whatever it may be. Or I'm on the other side, I cover my real feelings and act like I'm for you, but behind closed doors, I'm not for you at all. I'm doing things behind your back, but I give you the perception that I'm gonna allow you to climb the ladder, but I'm really not.
The easy answer to that is neither, but I don't want to cop out of your question. I think that's, you know what? Another thing my grandfather said back in 2016 during the election. He's just, sometimes when it comes to psychology and stuff, he's just brilliant. I love listening to him because he just is a people watcher and listener. And he was, obviously wasn't a fan of Obama, but he was not a fan of Trump at all, right? Like, couldn't believe this guy was going to be the candidate. And he tried, and I'm not saying he's right or wrong on this, but the way he read it is he was trying to explain some of the anger towards Obama, and then even saying like some of the anger towards him from inside his own community, quote unquote, like within some of the black community who didn't like him. And most of the black community did, but those who didn't, he's like, well, let's focus on that. He said the thing about like why would they like Trump? Like what? How does that make sense? Other than that, he's like saying, "Oh, we're going to bring jobs back." Okay, people can kind of get behind that, but how are you going to do that? Who's going to get the jobs? You know, they're not asking these questions. But he's like, when you look at Trump, he's the most textbook narcissist you'll ever see in your life. But he tells you he is. He literally like knocks on your door and says, "Hi, yes, Donald Trump, big narcissist. Like, here's what I think." You know what I mean? Like, he's upfront about it. So you used some example in something earlier. It's like the fourth time you've come full circle. But where you were saying where people are, and it's similar to the question you just asked, where you're like people who are right up front about stuff or something. But that's how he is. So people can have the thought of, oh my God, huge narcissist, and then immediately be like, you know, I appreciate the fact that he tells me he is, and then realize he's also hilarious to listen to because he's like, he does some of the stupidest shit, and it's hard to not laugh at it sometimes. You add in entertainment to the fact that he's honest, and some people are like, all right, I get behind this guy. Whereas Obama, he's not like that. But my grandfather viewed Obama as a big narcissist, but he was the behind-the-scenes guy. He was a guy who more or less would just quietly insinuate some stuff and then totally behind the scenes, like more passive-aggressive type. Whether he's right or wrong, take the names away. Take Trump and Obama away. Those are essentially the two types of people that you are pointing out right now. And the easy answer is to say neither. But I think another similar point to what you made earlier, it depends on the context. Like, if a guy is coming out and saying, like, openly telling me, you know, I'm a big supporter of the white nationalist movement. just because I give them credit for being honest about that doesn't mean I'm gonna be like, all right, well now I can vote for you.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like there's such a line to stuff. But if a guy can be honest about like, hey, here's 5 policy positions I have, whatever they are, and frankly, the 5th one is gonna fuck whoever these people are over here. Because unfortunately, if I don't do that one, then I can't do the other 4, and then I fuck more people over here. There's a part of me that goes, okay, he's honest. I appreciate that. You know, but it's still like I look at it. If I were a coal miner in West Virginia, I would think it was a sin against God to vote against Donald Trump. Right?
Explain a little bit.
Because not just the Democrats, the Republican Party pre-Trump, these parties in D.C. ignored all those people. We have a climate change problem, right? These people are trying to make a living, right? They don't have time to fucking sit there and figure out what the ozone layer is doing. They're making a living. And their wages were crushed more and more like this. And instead of the government coming in to like be like, okay, we have to figure out how the next generations in these towns are going to be able to get jobs and survive, they didn't even look at them.
Yeah.
Just turned their back on them. So then you have this blue-collar billionaire, quote-unquote, come in and be like, yo, we're going to put you back in the mines. You're going to make some money. He's a savior. Same way that I look at people who would say, you know, like, let's use the latest example. You could use the COVID example. Let's use a better one. Let's use the George Floyd example. The people who watched Trump's response to George Floyd with the fucking Bible and all that shit and the smoke and all that stuff in Washington, D.C. If you are a black guy who lives in a urban community and has had multiple friends get sent to jail for bullshit stuff when they were 15 years old and has seen violence from cops right in front of your face, as some of my friends have, right? This exists,
Some
right? I know you can definitely speak to that as well. We all can at this point. It's just, which is a great thing. We're all connected in society. It's cool, but not a positive thing to think about. Those people may look at it and be like, a vote for Trump is a vote against my life.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
So I just named 2 people who literally, because of their experience where they are, coal miner in batshit poor town in West Virginia, and some guy in Harlem or whatever, their experiences say this must be the way. This must be the way. And I happen to empathize with both. It doesn't mean that they're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what people have to realize in society. You can have 2 points of view. It doesn't mean, because there's some scenarios where you have 2 totally opposite points of view, but you both can be right in the same ecosystem. If that makes sense.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I can expand on that for sure. So, based on what you said, into 2 realities.
You're making me think. I like
Yeah.
this.
When you have 2 realities, you just explained the 15-year-old that lives in the inner city that doesn't want to vote for Trump because whatever he sees on TV, whatever it may be, and then you have the coal miners, whatever it may be. They both, in their world, they're right based on their experiences. So you're in the same ecosystem, United States of America, same ecosystem. Your points of view can be right, both be right in the same ecosystem. But if you look at it from outside a point of view, if you don't agree with either, it's wrong.
Yeah.
So you can have 2 totally different perspectives and points of view and both be right and still coexist.
Yeah.
You feel me? But people don't think that can happen. People say you have to be on this side or this side. But that's only can be the case if we all grow up in the same environment, raised the same way, or whatever it may be. People kind of, when we get into conversations like this, when you have people forget that we aren't all from the same place.
Yeah.
Me and you grew up 15 minutes away from each other, but have 2 totally different lives.
Yeah.
So your experience can be right to you, and my experience can be right to me, and we both can be right.
This is not said enough. This is not said enough.
Yeah, and we both can be right in the same ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't make you any better than me. It doesn't make me any worse than you. It's all based on your experiences and how you came up and what you've seen in your lifetime.
Environment.
But a lot of people get away from that. And I think when we talked about social media and the groupthink and things of that nature, it's like if I don't agree with you, I'm the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk to you anymore because you have this perspective.
What about the fact that people can be really loud behind a keyboard, though? One of my little quotes that happen that I enjoy is that there are a lot of people who type in uppercase and speak in lowercase.
Oh,
you know,
man, bro, it happens all the time.
Right.
It happens all the time.
So that can come from any political angle. some extreme. Everything is inherently political, but it can come from any opinion angle on whatever the context of the situation is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean like one side's right and the other side's wrong, which is kind of what you were just saying too. It just means that like this is what this person happens to think. I just think it gets exacerbated by the fact that you are removed from people. So you are going to have a bigger set of balls from being able to put something out there that you don't have to stand in front of all these people and say, you can just quickly do it and let the internet do its work.
Yeah.
That creates, to say nothing of the connectability and the 24/7 cycle of that creates room for a lot of stress and a lot of what they pointed out in The Social Dilemma, the documentary, where people just keep moving apart.
Yeah.
Moving apart.
This right here gives people a voice that they never had before.
Yeah. The phone. You're holding up the phone.
It has its good points and it has its bad points. But I think it's a good thing though. I think
Net.
Yeah, I think giving people a voice is a good thing because bro, how many times have you seen maybe one of your friends, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, maybe, you're like, I didn't know you go down their likes and you see, bro, I didn't know you liked stuff like that. I didn't know you had a point of view like that. So maybe things that they may not put in front of you because we talked about that persona that people want to give off, that they're this type of person. Now you can peel back the layers a little bit. Oh, this is what you're really like.
What about the downsides of that though too? I look at it
in terms of what? It's not what you mean.
Because people will then go cherry pick on stuff like that. I know some of my friends got shit because when Trump was president, I don't know if they still do, but they followed him on Twitter. He's the fucking president of the United States. Yeah. And people would go through their followers and be like, oh, you follow Donald Trump. How dare you? They're like, he's the fucking president. Like, bro, I want to know what he's going to say.
You gotta take things with context, bro. Like, if you're following the president, obviously a lot of people are trying to keep up what's going on. You feel me? Like, when someone doesn't become the president, like he's out of office, they probably unfollow them. Go follow Joe Biden now. Let me see what's going on. Yeah. When certain people get into positions of power, they want to follow them. They want to keep up on their day-to-day life. Yep. There's probably people that didn't follow you before, but now that you have a platform and your platform gives off gems on the different people you talk about, they want to hear what you have to say now. And not everybody might agree with what you have to say, but they want to hear what you have to say. Then that gives them the option: do I agree with them? Do I not agree with them?
And that's what I want. Like if I built a group of, I think the word sycophant listeners who just agreed with everything I said, that'd be really problematic. Yeah. You know how many things we talk about on this goddamn thing? How many different types of people I have on here? How many different opinions I am on a day-to-day basis right and wrong about? Yeah. If you're agreeing with it, and that points to the two-party system, why it's so fucked up. If you're agreeing with every single thing that one line of thought has, the problem's you. You know, and I mean, the problem is the system too, but the problem is on the back end that we've accepted that, right? Yeah. So I'm all about that. Where I draw the line is that you see that groupthink that you talk about come in, where then people, they find a way to then get behind everything else. There was a guy that I talked to, I'll never forget this. Maybe it was like 3 days before the 2016 election, and he was a political analyst kind of guy, and we were asking him his opinion. What do you think's going to happen? Why? And he said, I'm a political cynic, and I believe that the majority of people vote on the one, maybe two, and in rare cases 3 issues that actually matter to them. And what ends up happening is they find a way to then defend everything else behind that side, you know. And I'd never put it that simply, but that quote, every day of my life ages better and better, because you see people who just like, they will start screaming things in the way they type on social media that it's like, I wonder if they really thought that 5 years ago. They probably didn't, you know?
Life changes though.
That's true. That's true. Changes. But like, I'm talking about like some of the ridiculous shit. Oh, yeah. Like where, wait a second, you were just saying the opposite the other day and you don't even realize it, you know?
And I get what you're saying with that. Like when it comes to, I want to touch on you saying people vote for the 1 or 2 things that are closest to them. Wouldn't you though? The things that are closest to home to you, it may seem selfish, but at the end of the day, when we're voting in this democratic society, we're voting on things that are going to affect us the most, the things that are closest to home, that's going to affect our environment. Because not many people, when you get to a certain point, you're comfortable. You don't want to see change. That's when you get to a certain age, and they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's because they're in their ways, and people don't want their environment to shift one way or the other because they're used to that environment that they created. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I mean, when it comes to that, what do you think though? What do you think when it comes to the two-party system? Because I have my thoughts about that. I don't think there should be a two-party system.
How would you fix it? I love ideas on this. I always ask people.
First of all, my big thing is when it comes to like the primaries, I don't think it should just be, you have to register. Well, in our state, you have to register as Republican or Democrat and vote on that party.
It's stupid.
I think it should be a ballot. Who do you agree with? All right, I'm voting for this person. Because what if there's somebody? All right, I said this. What if somebody on the Democratic Party, they're running for president, and I want to vote for them because I like their points of view. But maybe in my community, the person that's at the pedestal that I believe in their views and what they're going to do to the community is on the Republican Party, is an independent, and I want to vote for them. But they don't allow us to do that. When you go into the primary, you have to vote. All right, I'm registered as a Democrat or Republican. I only can vote for people in that party.
I don't even know how to do that or fix that. It's funny you bring. I was looking at this the other day because I was kind of weird, but I was Googling myself for something specific, and I'm a registered Republican. I don't even know when I did that, and I'm like, well, how do I even register as an independent? Like, it's fucking 2021. This should be like one click. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to your point, I would go to the next level and say, why do you even have to do that?
Yeah.
Now, one contrapoint would be, well, what about people then savagely coming in and voting to screw a vote on the other side? Okay, but doesn't that happen already?
It does. But when it comes down to that, I just feel as though you shouldn't be boxed in. Because that limits us. We're supposed to be a society that we vote on what we vote on. It's the freedom of speech and that type of things. But in the same aspect, they kind of just limited us. We're not able to do that in some aspects.
Yeah, it's another example of a system that was invented, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, and we just haven't adjusted it.
Haven't adjusted. That's what. All right, so you're about to get me on a tangent a little bit.
Go.
What do you think about laws being updated as things evolve?
Context. What types of laws? What are some examples?
I'm just saying. Let's see. That's a good question. So when it comes to, you know how over time, let's use pay for an example.
Okay.
Let's use pay. Why hasn't there been laws updated that women and men should be paid equal for the same job that they do? Like, why isn't there a law implemented? Because obviously statistics show that if you're in the same position as a man or woman, a man's gonna get paid more.
That is a really interesting argument.
Not saying that it's set in stone that this happened. Why isn't there a law made to say this needs to be a requirement? If I'm a woman in the same position as men, our base salary to start off should be the same.
So this is a tough topic for me because I've seen, you just introduced this by accident. I've seen so much conflicting data that lacks context on this. So my opinion is not fully formed on it because I don't feel like I have enough information to actually go all the way. There's two schools of thoughts here. Yeah. Once again, it's women are paid so much less than men. It's a law and that's what's happening and we got to completely change it. It's ridiculous. And then there's the other side that says it's a total myth, right? Yeah. I've seen data that says that women are looked at differently after they've had kids and then don't get the same opportunities at the office when they do try to go back. I believe that, right? I think that has to be some percentage of the problem. I've also seen data that shows that, and I'm going to pull a number out of my ass here, but if I remember correctly, there was a popular piece of data that was going around maybe a couple years ago that said women get paid 79% or something, what the average male gets paid per position or whatever. But then you take the context of that and it wasn't true in the sense that a lot of women had chosen to not have X job, like this type of job, or that could pay more. So maybe...
What do you mean that they didn't choose?
Maybe a woman, maybe more men were going into being computer engineers than women, right? And more, I'm going to pick a really generalization one right here. More women were becoming nurses, getting paid well, but not getting paid what the computer engineers getting paid. So then it affected the pay. But then when they looked at it like job to job, there was context behind how many women then just decided to take off from their career and maybe come back way later, right? So take 10 years off to be a mom, which is the most important job in the world.
Of course.
But then when they come back, the guy who's been there, the male who's been there for 10 years the whole time, he's going to be higher than her and paid more than her because he's, frankly, through no fault of her own, he's more valuable because you can't take away that experience. He's been in there, right, for 10 years that she wasn't. So I, like, without even pulling up some of the data, and we can pull up some to at least like get some of the conversation going.
This is just
complicated.
This is like not something where I'm pulling out facts. It's just conversations to be had because we all been in the workforce, and it's conversation that's always being had. And if we want to stay on the workforce topic while you pull that up, another thing would be the minimum wage thing. I want to hear your thoughts on that as well.
That's another tough one. I think one thing needs to be said out front is $7.25 an hour a livable wage in 2021.
I don't think
Absolutely
so.
fucking
Absolutely
not. It's not even remotely close.
It's not close.
So anyone who tries to argue the point by leading with, well, it's a minimum wage and it's not much, but you can live on it, is out of their fucking mind. Is $15 a livable wage in 2021? I'm not sure that is.
I don't think it depends where you're at, obviously, but on a grand scheme of things, nah.
Here's the problem, and this is why this is like the healthcare system for me.
Yeah.
I've never seen a good answer, right? If it were up to me, I would take the magic wand and just make it 15 or 20 or something, whatever we could determine was the minimum in like the average neighborhood to be able to survive with like a family of 2 kids, right? I would do that. The problem is the market is a free market, and people are incentivized to go for where the work is going to most benefit them. So especially with automation coming in, if you want to see people get moved to having to live off of the government more than ever before, you raise the minimum wage across the board because watch, every business has to survive. If they, like, look at all these restaurants as an example in COVID, who you see these people who, you know, that's one of the hardest businesses in the world. Our buddy Giovanni, his family's in that business, right? Like my best friend for my whole life, his family's in the restaurant business. You are fucking grinding, right?
Bro.
And it's the people that work there too grinding. And they're in the good environments, they're like a family. So you saw all these restaurant owners and other businesses too, but let's stick with that example. When COVID hit and, you know, their people couldn't work and couldn't eat, they're fucking crying, like they take it personally and whatever. Imagine if those people hadn't been there in the first place, though. Some of them, like the ones who don't work on tips, because it got to a point where they couldn't even afford to hire them because the margins aren't there and they're required to pay them more. You know, you get to a point where it's like, well, does that mean that we're going to have only high schoolers working on this stuff versus actual people who need the job? What's the balance there? What's the balance there now? I don't know. I don't know. What I can start with is that if people want to say, well, is the current system okay? No, it's not. Show me data that tells you 725 is okay. I'll wait. You're not going to find it.
Not.
So I don't know. I don't have an answer.
I just wanted to hear your opinion on that because
What's your thought?
I think it should the same way like the economy scales. I feel as though minimum wage should scale. Like if depending on where you're at, like if you're living in San Francisco, one of the highest rent districts in the country, if not the highest, if you're making whatever $10, $12, whatever minimum wage is, you aren't gonna be able to live out there. You feel me? That's why I feel like that plays a part in the homelessness situation that we have, things of that nature.
Which is I don't have the number in front of me, but that's a way higher number than, like, I saw that number a couple weeks ago. People would throw up if they really knew what the homelessness number was.
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's 7 figures, I believe.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of different things that could be changed in our society. I mean, we don't have to go too deep into it, but that's just my thoughts. I just wanted to hear your opinion on things evolving in humans not updating and evolving with the times in some aspect.
Can we use this conversation as an example of the fact that there are a lot of complex issues that do not have easy answers? This is a prime example.
Yeah, there's a lot of complex issues. I don't have the answers. I was just, like I said, it's
a great question.
It's crazy to think about. And these are the type of things that race through my mind all the time. Like when I'm doing certain things, it's like, why is this happening but this isn't happening? Why is this evolving but this certain thing is staying stagnant? it's just a question that I don't think anybody really has a concrete answer for. I don't think there is a concrete answer or solution for it, but I feel like there could be more people trying to find a solution for it, trying to push for something, trying to make that type of change. But I could be wrong. There could be plenty of people out there.
I don't want to bring up all the data right now because this is such a complex topic.
Yeah.
This is one where I would want the producer over here working for 15 minutes to get the right sources and everything. So I'm not going to do that, right? Because chances are I'm going to put up something from the wrong sides that are just not right or leave out significant context. Mm-hmm. But we talked about it earlier when we were talking about the justice system and how people get to places, and we talk about environment. You have to have that same question on, well, why are these the outcomes, right? Why are white men the highest paid among the workforce? Well, the first thing that should be given at least some credit and some context is that white men still comprise of the highest percentage of the society of, I think, any group.
But when you say highest paid, do you mean
no, highest percentage of society?
No, I'm saying, what was your original statement that you said it was they're the highest paid in the workforce? Or
yes, yeah,
but
I believe the data shows that.
Even though they're the highest, when you're talking about highest paid, like you're talking about the accumulation of how much money is being made in that demographic, or just the average salary.
Average salary.
But even though they're the highest percentage of people, why do they need to be the highest salary?
That's the question. What puts them in that position to most likely be that? What also... Where's the context in the numbers of unemployment, too?
Yeah.
How many white males are unemployed? I don't fucking know.
I have no idea.
How many black males are unemployed?
No clue.
I was even looking at that 2 weeks ago. I couldn't tell you what the number was right now. I forget, right? So those things, like the context is the number one thing. And I feel like, and this is the downside of it, the more context you get, the more impossible the answers become. Mm-hmm. You know, like I brought up healthcare a couple minutes ago. With healthcare, this is not what necessarily both sides are saying, but this is what the opposite sides hear, right? So when a Republican comes out with their healthcare plan, the opposite side hears, oh, we want people dying in the streets because they can't afford healthcare, right? Do I think the Republicans want that? Do I think they would want to leave someone in the street? No, I do not. When the left comes out and gives their healthcare plan, we hear from the right side that, oh, they want doctors to make no money so that all the competition to be a doctor leaves and our medical system goes through the floor. Do I think the left side wants doctors here to suck? No, I do not. Right? I also think that both of those explanations, though, point out to why we still don't have a solution there, because they're both inherently correct as far as what the criticism of the opposite side. Mm-hmm. I agree with both. So, I think the idea of letting someone die in the streets, which is worst case scenario, is crazy.
Super crazy.
I also think it's crazy to not incentivize doctors who literally pay hundreds of thousands of dollars and have no life for 12 years to become doctors and work in one of the highest pressure jobs in the world. To be like, yeah, we're not really going to pay you.
But that goes back to like the whole system talk. Like we can even go into the college conversation. Like, since we're on that topic,
you're hitting all of them.
Why do we have to pay so much money to get an education, especially for the jobs that are needed, like a doctor, to keep our society going, to keep people healthy? Why are those things have to come at such a price? I feel like those are necessities. You need doctors. You know what I'm saying? You need lawyers. You need things of that nature to make our society and community go around and keep spinning and keep going. But if you put it at such a price, a lot of people are going to be more deterred, going to take a different path. And then, like you said, there's going to be less and less and less. And to the point, I mean, we're not going to see it where there's not going to be no doctors, whatever it may be. But you feel me? Why is that a thing? Why is education so much? Why is something?
Why do you think?
Money, bro. Our society is a capitalist society, and at the end of the day, it's about the dollar amount, in my opinion.
Yep.
That's point blank. Period.
I agree with you.
It's about the dollar amount. They see I get X amount of students in my institution. They pay X amount of dollars here. This is how much I'm coming at the end. And that goes into we're sports guys. If you go into the NCAA when it comes to sports and things of that nature, bro.
Don't get me started on them.
It's ridiculous.
That's fucking crazy.
It's crazy. Like when I was playing in school, like obviously I want to have a scholarship, whatever.
Where did you play?
I went to Colorado State Pueblo, D2 school in Colorado, Pueblo, Colorado. So when I played, you feel me? We're not on a bigger scale, Division I scale, but we were a powerhouse in D2. I'm saying won the conference 9 out of 10 years, whatever it may be.
60-hour-a-week job.
Yeah. Yeah, and some people, they're not on scholarship. Obviously, D2 rarely have full scholarships unless you're one of those guys. You know what I'm saying? But even there, you don't get the same amenities. You're still some people are still coming out of pocket, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, we filling up the stadium. We're bringing money into the school on a daily basis, but you don't see any of it. And then if you look on the larger scale of like Alabama's or LSU's, where they're pretty much on Saturdays, they're running their college town's economy. Yeah. You feel me?
Completely.
But they don't see anything.
Their coaches make millions.
But they don't see any of it.
No. They're not allowed to have a YouTube channel.
You can have a YouTube channel to make money in college. What kind of sense does that make? You rather see your players struggling? I never forget Richard Sherman. He said he had a certain dollar amount on his bank account. And he had to decide whether he wanted to eat or not or pay rent.
I believe him.
I believe
100%.
it. 100%. And it's crazy.
This came up on another podcast, but Reggie Bush, remember December 2005 when he won the Heisman?
Yeah.
That didn't happen. It didn't happen. He didn't win the Heisman that year. You never saw that. It was not on ESPN. He didn't get up and give the speech because Reggie Bush, I think, took like a car. Oh, my God. One of the greatest college football players I've ever seen in L.A. who generated hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Took a car. And he doesn't have a Heisman Trophy. Reggie Bush, he will always be the Heisman Trophy winner in everyone's book. Let's get that straight. But this is where common sense comes in, man.
It's common sense.
And I will give the NCAA, I don't care if I sound like an asshole, I will give them zero credit on the recent stuff, which is a small step in the right direction, because they're not doing it because they want to. They're doing it because they finally got forced to, because enough people had the balls to be like, wait, this ain't it.
Yeah. It's ridiculous at the end of the day. And my thing is, we always talk about, the common thing has been evolution and perspective and things like that for this whole conversation. Players are getting smarter. What
do you mean by that? To be specific, I think I know, but I want to.
They're finding other resources, bro. We'll use LaMelo Ball for an example. Why LaMelo and LeVar? Why am I going to send my kid to this place when I can go overseas, make money, and still get to the same destination? I don't need. Back in the day, you needed the NCAA to get to the professional. You don't need that anymore. You don't need them anymore. It's not a necessity. If you're good, the scouts are going to find you.
You still kind of do for football. But yes, you're
football.
right.
Football is a different story. I'm talking on the basketball aspect.
Yeah. I 100% agree on basketball.
Football, you need development. That's a whole different ball game, in my opinion.
What was it? Rich Paul got. I don't even remember who the guy is. I don't think he's like good. But Rich Paul got one of his clients who was a high school player.
Oh yeah, he signed like a New Balance or something like that.
Yeah, $1 million internship. Amazing.
It's amazing, bro.
Love that.
And bro. You gonna give me on Rich Paul too? That whole Rich Paul rule that they tried to create.
Oh,
because he didn't have an education, but the guy is one of the top agents, if not the top agent in the NBA.
Okay. This is where, like, you're a fly on the wall in that room of the people who are going to decide to make this rule and put out the statement on a Microsoft Word document and file it to CBS and NBC and ESPN saying, we are now stating a rule where you have to have X amount of education. There's got to be more than one person in that room, I take it, right?
A committee, probably.
Yeah. They probably all have college educations, which makes them supposedly smart, right?
Supposedly.
Like, supposedly their IQs are pretty good.
Quote, unquote.
Quote, unquote. Clearly, either they're assholes or they lack any and all common sense. Because before you send that out, first of all, you're going at the preeminent athlete on planet Earth. You're going at LeBron James. That's his guy. You are taking your gun, aiming it at LeBron and saying, all right, you're the target. And then secondly, you're going at a guy who happens to be taking over in many ways.
I think he is. I don't think it's happening. I think it is. It's. I think he might be at that point, like where he controls the market. It's market share.
Controls the market. About to take the NFL. You're going after a guy who's doing that, and you are going after specifically the one thing that happens to make him different than all the other guys, which is that Rich Paul, instead of having the opportunity to go to college and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars and get into debt or whatever, and then go to law school, which actually helps a lot of agents in fairness, right? Like that can be a very important thing that he's found ways around, to his credit. Instead of doing that, Rich Paul found the way to make $1 by getting his hands on throwback jerseys and slumming it out of the trunk of his car, selling it to people, and one day happened to really make a guy named LeBron James happy when he did it, and then came in and proved every single thing after. Think what you want of him. Think great guy, bad guy. I don't give a fuck. Look at the resume.
Yeah.
And they went right at him with that.
Yeah.
The lack of common sense in doing that, I laughed my ass off when I saw it. I didn't care how it looked. Like, of course, it seemed like kind of racist as fuck or whatever. I just laughed. I'm like, they're this stupid. And they think we're this stupid.
Yeah, they think we're they thought everybody's going to agree with them, whatever it may be. But I was like, this is absurd in my opinion. The system's always good until someone figures it out. That's how, like, you feel me? Like he found a way around it. Like if you're somebody, look, if you're smart enough to start your own agency and you didn't go to college, whatever, and you're good enough to the point where now you're in the position you can hire those kids that went to law school and do that stuff for you. That's how I look at it. And you see a lot of people nowadays that are super successful. They may not have went the college route, but they built their resume enough to put them in the position to do the things they wanted to do. Now, if you're not as knowledgeable in that particular industry, whatever it may be, you're in a position to hire people to do those things for you. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. No. Do you think it's because they had animosity towards him?
No, he set up a great business model. And he set up a relationship model too.
Yeah.
The players who come through there, that's a fraternity.
Of course.
There's one guy I recently met who works there. And, you know, it is very, very clear to me that, at least from the outside, with the limited amount that I've seen of it, and I want to highlight, underscore, limited amount, that place is a well-oiled communication machine. They are all on the same page.
Yeah.
They are all on the same page.
They're on the same page. It's one mission, and they're all on the same accord, like you said. And I've watched a couple of Rich Paul interviews and things of that nature just to try to understand like his thought process and the way he goes about doing things. And the number one thing that you said is relationships.
Yeah.
It's not all about just the dollar for him. It's about relationships, one, and transparency. We talked about transparency before. When people know what you're trying to get done, you don't sugarcoat them. You don't give them BS. You don't give them the fluff. You tell them, look, this is what it is. This is what I'm trying to do, whatever it may be. It works. You see the machine works. You see what we've done in the past. It works for whoever's under our thing. People are going to, all right, I have that track record. What I'm doing works, so let's give it a shot.
He also, though, and like I guess you got to give LeBron a lot of credit too, because I don't know. It seems like a lot of the building that they've done has been in partnership, right?
Yeah, of course.
So there's upsides and downsides to everything, but I think a lot of what places where I agree with LeBron and think he's done a ton of good is putting power in the hands of the individual.
Explain what you mean by that.
Athletes were always brought in to be the entertainer, and they're paid a lot of money, and for a long time now they've been paid a lot of money. That's great, right? They're the moneymaker, though.
Of course.
Would an owner buy a team if there weren't star power athletes who people looked up to?
Nope.
Absolutely not, right? So the upside is that they were making more and more money over time and getting well compensated. Great. What they were able to do within the confines of the system, like what you brought up with these systems that are set up and then someone figures out a way around it.
Yeah.
They started to realize that we don't really have control over where we want to go. It's kind of like up to the league, and it's kind of up to what they say can go. And that can come through in a lot of things. It can come through in something as stupid as like the David Stern dress code, right? Eventually,
which is ridiculous, by the way.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. It was the Allen Iverson rule, you know, which like I don't want to see Allen Iverson in a suit. I want to see Allen Iverson in like Iverson swag, man.
Yeah.
Like when he walks in, in a suit, I'm like, it's like castrating a championship horse. Like, what are you doing? Like, there's no like, you don't get that feeling.
That's what people came to see.
Yeah,
you feel me?
Yeah,
that's what they came to see.
Yeah, so like that's like a stupid, simple example. But look at all these systems with money, right? The agents. They're all the same guys. And maybe some of them are really good. Some of them definitely are, and they care about their players. Maybe some don't, right? But they have to go in through the NBA. This is how it works. This is the way you get your contract. This is what your rights are as a free agent. This is what your rights are when someone wants to trade you. And over time, players start to figure out, I want to get more rights in my contract.
Yeah.
And then a guy like LeBron comes along, sees all the backlash that he would get, and some of it deservedly so, right? Like when he did the decision, that was a bad PR move. Fine, okay. But then sees how much pressure is put on every little thing he does, and then also how little flexibility he has. And so he spends his career fighting to get him and other players more and more flexibility. And then eventually turns it into an agency where he goes, well, wait a second. We can literally have the players in charge.
Yeah.
With like, I back this agency.
Yeah.
And we'll be the agency too. Is there a slippery slope to that in the sense that you end up creating a monopoly because players are more likely over time to gravitate towards people who are completely like them? Yes.
Is it a slippery slope though?
What do you think?
I don't think it is.
Why not?
At the end of the day, I think the players should be controlled because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are the moneymakers. They're the ones bringing in the dollars. So why can't they control what comes in and out their ecosystem?
When you say ecosystem,
their community, like when it comes, why should someone at the top, the commissioner, whatever, be able to tell Allen Iverson that you have to wear a suit or you can't do this or you're gonna lose your money? When the thing that brings him money and elevates his brand is his swag.
Yep.
But you're taking that away from him.
Yep.
Why should the NFL tell Chad Ochocinco you can't celebrate or you're getting fined? When that is his persona, that builds his brand. At the end of the day, people come to see Chad Ochocinco dance after he scores, do a salsa, put the ball with the pylon. That's what they come to see.
they buy it.
They buy it. Yeah. It's you said it's entertainment at the end of the day. And then they're both their brands, Allen Iverson, Ochocinco, whatever. What they do on the field, their charisma, their swag, that helps them off the field in the long run. So why should someone that's sitting in an office tell them what they can and can't do? In that aspect, because obviously there's some things that should be limited or whatever, but in that aspect, why should someone be able to cut that off?
I understand what you meant. No, I agree with all that. I don't think they should, and I think that is the complete positive side of doing this. I think the downside of it, the potential quote unquote slippery slope, is that if LeBron's going to have a career long after his career ends.
Of course,
he's got a lot of plans here. He can create, because he has one thing that none of these agents have ever had. He was the guy. He will have been the guy, right? Like in his sport and across the athlete community. He will have that, and he also has a shared experience that a lot of these guys, few of these agents have, right? A lot of these, Drew Rosenhaus, guys like this, they can't understand, the community LeBron came from. You know what I mean? But like LeBron made it out of that situation and then made something of himself and created a whole business, a brand behind what he does. So when he's speaking to guys who may have come from a similar background, he can have a conversation, and righteously so, he can have a conversation with them that Drew Rosenhaus can't.
Of course.
So when I look at it, I don't see how Clutch doesn't take over at all. I really don't.
I think they will, unless someone puts a restriction in that says, all right, you can't.
And that's a slippery slope too.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a restriction. You only can have X amount of players in your agency or whatever it may be. Like LeBron can't have any type of partnership in whatever agency it is. However they go about it, I'm sure they'll try to put something out there.
Once he's not a player, they can't do it.
Yeah, they can't.
They better not do. I would be totally against that.
Yeah.
See, that's not the answer either. Oh, you want to rig the game? It's the same thing as the Rich Paul rule. They tried to rig the game.
Yeah.
Like if you want a free market, make it a free market. The question is same thing, same types of questions I have on a much smaller scale here with Amazon. Where do they stop?
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to think about that. What do you mean, like where do they stop in terms of like scalability, what they want and taking over everything? I don't see them stopping.
Exactly.
I don't see them stopping. But at the end of the day, I look at it like this. Because I think everybody has opportunity, but everybody doesn't have the same opportunity, if that makes sense.
Can you just? I think I agree with you. Can you just explain that? I want to make sure I know.
So
what you mean.
like everybody has opportunity to scale like Amazon, whatever it may be, but Jeff Bezos may be in a position where he was already there. You feel me?
Yes.
He was already there. Like I'm sitting here with you. I could have the opportunity to take over, make the next Disney, make the next Amazon, whatever it may be, make the next ABC network, whatever it is. But there's some people that are already in that position that were maybe either born in that position, elevated in the position, whatever relationship they may have, they were just put in that position. We see it all the time in jobs. Like there's people ahead of you that may not be as knowledgeable or work as hard as you because they knew somebody. I'm there, and now I have them backing me, so now I can rapid fire take over everything.
Completely agree. Yeah, I think.
Do you think before you go to your thought, I don't want to cut you off, but
go ahead.
Do you think Jeff Bezos or whoever it may be is at fault for that though?
Wait, at fault for what?
If they had that they were given that opportunity to scale. Do you think they're at fault for taking it to the furthest extent?
It's a slippery slope question. No. In that sense, no. Now, do I know who's evil and who's not? No, I don't, because I don't know them. I can look at actions. There's certainly some things that Jeff Bezos has done outside of what he's doing in business that makes me go, I don't know about that guy. Other people, I have no idea, right? They're there in a free market. I believe in the free market. But one of the things that, not to pick on them, but you see like these pure old school conservatives in Congress and in Senate. One of the questions that they need to weigh right now as a conscience question is, okay, we've spent our whole lives talking about free markets and everything. And yes, that system, again, that's what I want to default to, right? 100%. I like less government control in the marketplace. But you have to admit there's a line somewhere. Like Standard Oil had a line. John D. Rockefeller was taking over the world.
Yeah.
The government came in and broke them up. That worked more than it didn't work. You know?
What do you mean?
Because they broke up. Standard Oil they basically supplied all the oil, right? And so they came in and they made them, I don't know what it was, 25 companies or something, and they created an ecosystem of competition.
Okay, that makes sense. I got you.
It was still an oligopoly, right? Like, you didn't suddenly have an upstart from Swedesboro, New Jersey come over and compete with ExxonMobil. That didn't happen, right? But you at least created where it's not, you have that competition where there's going to be some inherent competitiveness where people aren't going to do the same things and they aren't just going to go after the same goals that the other person is. Whereas if it's all in the same company, it's going to go off the vision of what the company is, whether that's good or bad for humanity. It's about the game at some point, right? Like I think Jeff Bezos got to the point where it became about the game a long time ago.
Of course. I think a lot of guys that are in that position, it's about the game.
Yeah.
What more can, look, if you're not playing for the game, like you got everything you could possibly want in the world in terms of monetary value. Business-wise, same thing. So at that point, when you've reached a certain point of success, it becomes about the game. I think everything else goes out the window. Yeah. Because now it's just about numbers. Look, I've reached this mark. Next year, I need to get here.
Yep.
Need to get here.
Exactly.
I'm going to do any means necessary to get there.
Yep.
But whose fault is that for generating that thought process in us? Is it society because we live in a capitalist society? It's about the man. The power comes with the man who has the more dollars. And that's in our society. Or do you think that's something that's taught? Or do you think that's just something that's in us innately and the money just brings it out?
I think it's a combination of all that. I mean, to an extent, two powerful people in two different things, LeBron and Bezos. What do they have in common? What they have in common is, you know, LeBron, when he was 15 years old, didn't have any money. Jeff Bezos, when he was 28, left his big job behind, and you've seen the picture of that office, worked in some office with a fucking cardboard sign, right? They started on zero in that sense. Maybe different environments. Jeff probably had it better than LeBron did. That's not what I'm saying, like equal, right? But they both started on zero, so to speak, and they built what they have, and they need a ton of credit for that. We started this little rabbit hole with Clutch and that ecosystem and them taking over that ecosystem. What I want to say, where this conversation just went, is that what I'm talking about with the slippery slope of Clutch there versus the slippery slope of Amazon are two very different things. Yeah. Clutch is one, it's a big one. It's a pop culture sports, right? Because they're looking at NBA and NFL, and eventually they'll get to other leagues too. So yeah, that could change all that, and we can come back to that. But Amazon's a global business. Yeah. that supplies goods. A lot more than that now too.
Yeah,
supplies the data, supplies the web, how we access the internet. Many of us. The slippery slope to that is a different stratosphere.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I see Jeff come in and you know, he's leaving, quote unquote, now, big air quotes there, right?
Is he leaving?
Exactly.
Is he?
And you don't know. But when I see them come in and say, you know, we're going to get into the pharmacy business. Oh, how are you going to compete? We're going to lose a lot of money for like 5 years. We're going to go bleed out everyone because they can.
Yeah.
That's not the fault of the people in the pharmacy industry who have focused on that their entire career. And it's also not the fault of Amazon for using a free system to their advantage. Where does it stop, though?
I think when you get to that point, it's when you talk about creating your own ecosystem and getting to a position of power where you can do whatever you want. I think it's what you do with that power that makes the difference. And I think that's the point where people start to care. If you're a person like LeBron and you're building that ecosystem that's gonna eventually take over the sports world, if they keep going on the rate that they're going, people don't care as much because of the things he's doing outside of that. When it comes back to, I'm opening up a school for disadvantaged kids to have an opportunity to potentially get to where I'm at.
He should get get more credit for that.
And things of that nature. I feel as though that's where the difference comes when it comes to the perspective of the people from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Because Jeff Bezos, for all I know, he could be doing something like that, but I don't ever see it. You feel me? I think people judge you as far as they can see when it comes to certain things.
Yeah, like, why does Jeff Bezos buy the Washington Post? Is that fun?
Like, what's the point of that? To control a narrative?
A horrible business.
Yeah.
The worst possible business you could buy. Why is he doing that? And I love my fucking Kindle. Why is the Washington Post automatically the first thing I see when I open up my Kindle? You know, what is the Washington Post? Obviously, they're coming from a very left agenda, which, you know, no journalist should be on either side of the spectrum, but at least, like, most of us kind of know that. But that also affects the narrative.
Yeah.
And what does Amazon rely on? It relies on delivering things to people. So who have they taken out? They've taken out retailers. They've taken out people who can't deliver as effectively. So why is he advertising the Washington Post to me when the Washington Post has written in support of extensive lockdowns, regardless of whatever data was coming out during COVID, while Amazon was just going through the roof? That's not okay. That's an action.
And that's because now we're getting to something that's very serious. Like,
yeah.
When it comes to, like, the media, the narratives that are pushed to the masses that make us think one way or another, especially when we're talking about the COVID thing. Because on the grand scheme of things, when it comes to COVID, I don't think anyone knows how serious or not serious it really is. Because of the what I mean by that is nobody knows what's true, what's not true, because one, either they're hiding. My biggest thing is why is information being held from us so we don't know what the real extent of what's going on really is? Do you think it's because they don't want us to get into disarray if it's super serious, or they don't want us to know that it's not as serious as they make it be?
Stay talking. Go on a monologue here. I like this.
Because I think there's a lot of things that could happen. Like if we realize that it is as serious or even worse than what they put out there, I think people go into chaos. All right, what am I gonna do? They go into, like, shutdown mode. Society, we're not gonna do anything. We're gonna be in our houses the way we were forever because it's something crazy. And then people like Jeff Bezos, they can control whatever they want to control. But then if we get to the point where it's not as serious, how do you think that's going to reflect the people that were saying it is serious? Whether it's our government saying it is or it isn't. And I don't know what it is or what it's not. I believe it's something that's obviously there.
What about the fact? Let me ask the question right back on you, though. What about the fact that the people who are saying it's serious also are the people who, after it's quote unquote not in your hypothetical scenario right there, are also the people who are going to control the narrative after the fact?
Bro, we talk about the game. I think it's part of the game on a larger scale. Because who am I to say that it's not a serious thing when there's people out there dying? You feel me? Who am I to judge and say that it's not? Yeah. When people are being affected, people are losing jobs, things of that nature.
Do you think, though, and this is a very quick highlight opinion. It's a lot deeper than this and more complex, but I look at it at the highest level of you generally seem to have two schools of thought that even if there's a lot of people in the middle of it, the people whose voices get heard on social media and in public institutions are either it doesn't exist, it's bullshit, or it's the worst thing of all time, it's killing 30% of us or whatever, right? I happen to think both are full of shit. Of course it exists. We've been around this. A lot of us know people who died or, were affected. Like, it's way worse than the regular flu. The data also shows that. The data also shows, though, that it ain't killing 10% of the society. Like the data also shows that there is a significant increase in people who are going to have future inability to earn as a result of this, and also mental health and all the nasty things that come with that I think a lot of us have people around us who have been affected by that heavily.
Of course, it's when we talk about slippery slope, this is a slippery slope. Yeah. This is definitely a slippery slope because like when there's so much information being pushed out to us, how do you know which information to take in that's true or it's not true? Like how do you dictate that though? That's something I don't like. How do you can say, oh, this is a credible source or whatever it may be, but if you have somebody like Jeff Bezos who's running a credible source, which is the Washington Post, over time they built their credibility. People read what's in there. If it's not an op-ed, it's a factual article that's out there. Then they're gonna go with it because over time, the Washington Post built their credibility of being a reliable source. But if you have somebody now that's controlling the narrative, whatever it may be, where does that put the people? I feel like the people are in a bind because we've gotten to a point where some people don't know what to believe.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah, and it's a scary place to be in because we're in a bind like this. Some people don't know when the next meal is gonna come. Mm-hmm. They don't know if they're living with their parents. They don't know if I step outside and I go across the wrong person and I bring that back home. Mm-hmm. I could affect my parents. Mm-hmm. But when you bring out the numbers and the statistics and saying like, oh, this amount of like if you contract it, whatever it may be, like the percentages are very low, whatever. I forget the numbers you put out, but and then you look at that, so it's like, oh, I can
before the podcast. Yeah.
It's like I don't know what to think. It's something I think about all the time. Because it's a confusing time that we're in. It's very confusing.
That's an understatement of the year.
It's a very confusing time that we're in.
I'm confused every day, man.
I'm even just talking now. The things that I'm saying right now is like my thing is like, all right, is that true? Is that not true? Because you just think and you get in a whirlwind of thoughts. It's like,
have you seen the cyclone of topics we've ripped through so far? Some that we're not going to get back to, just like that related to each other in a weird way. Yeah, that shows you all you need to know.
Yeah,
and. To be clear, I always refer to, because I'm not a COVID expert, always make that clear.
Not at all.
I just refer to the data that I get from the CDC, right? Mm-hmm. So the report that extensively broke out the quote-unquote mortality analysis across age groups was September 10th. I'll put it in the show notes. I've put it in there a million times on the website. But, it talks about the dangers in different age groups. Mm-hmm. So the most deadly effective COVID is the last age group, which is 70 and above, which covers everyone up to 95, whatever. So I don't know if it's more dangerous for a 95-year-old versus a 75-year-old. I just assume it's all roughly the same, right? Those people have a 94.5% chance of survival of cases that we know about, right? Which means, there's a 5.5% chance they're going to die. Who am I to say that grandma dying at 92 versus the fact that she could have lived at 95 and had 3 more years with you doesn't matter. I'm not the person to say that.
We're not.
That's bullshit,
it's
right?
BS.
That's someone's mom.
Exactly.
That's someone's grandma.
Exactly.
Like, you can't do that.
You can't.
You can also then on the other end be like, okay, well, people between the ages of 4 and 17, for example, I don't remember the exact number, so I won't give it, but there's a lot of zeros after the point, right?
Of course.
So, like, chances are, you don't want your fucking kid to get it, right?
Exactly.
But if your 10-year-old got it in quarantine prior to all the vaccines coming out and everything, you're probably thinking to yourself after he comes out of it, like, oh, all right, that's a relief. That's over. You know what I mean?
And I think when it comes to that too as well, is it may not even just be like they're worried about their kids getting because they know that it's not affecting them as much as it may do an older person. It's just maybe who they come across.
Yeah.
I think that's where this what's the word I'm looking for? People being frightened comes from. It's not so it's when it's not the kid contracting, it's like, who are they going to give it to?
Yes.
That's the scary part. And that's when I talk about, when we talked at the beginning of talking about COVID, is we don't really know what COVID is and what's how it goes from person to person, how it's going to affect one person over. Because you can have a kid that shows no symptoms.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them, yeah. You have an adult that shows no symptoms.
And it's like, we don't really know what's going on with it, which is like a crazy thing. We can have all the numbers, all the facts, but it's like, I just want some transparency about what's really going on. You feel me? And
good luck.
It's just that's my biggest thing, and I have my own thoughts about the government transparency, and I want to get your thoughts on the vaccine. I want to hear that.
Let's get to the vaccine. You can't just leave me with that, though. What are your thoughts on the government with transparency? I love that. I love ripping on the government. So let's go.
I don't ever think we're going to get full transparency from the government.
Agree.
Do I think the people want full transparency? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think we're ready for what's really going on? No.
Also agree.
Because I think there's some stuff that's so high level that if we really knew what was going on, people would maybe be in panic. They wouldn't know how to react to it. And I think it's the government's job to keep people in a calm state, a state of like I say, comfortability. And I think that's like when you were talking about Trump earlier and him coming and being so outlandish, saying different things,
yep,
and giving people a voice that didn't have it. People weren't used to that. So that change that happened, it's like you incited a group of people that we've never heard from before. Gave people a voice to do certain things, even with the Capitol storming and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you ever thought that would have happened?
Would I ever have thought that situation could have happened?
Before the presidency, do you think that would have happened? Like, would you ever envision people storming and taking over a Capitol building?
Are you talking about pre-Trump?
Yeah.
Be able to envision it? Sure. Think it's going to happen?
Yeah.
No.
That's what I mean.
Do I also think, though, that, I really believe in shit works both ways on stuff. Like, one of my friends who is a big listener of the show, who's still, I can't call him active military, years in the military, right? Mm-hmm. And now he works, I don't want to say where he works, but he works on government shit as a on-the-ground kind of guy. I'll just leave it at that. He texted me something really simple when that was going on that day. He said, look, you go into the Capitol, you get shot. It's just not very complicated. That's just how it is. Like, you breach the Capitol. All right.
That's what I was getting at. That's the point I was getting at.
Yeah, and you're asking me if I thought that was possible. Possible? Yes. Likely? No. After what I've seen over the last 5 years, did I think would I have said the Capitol building? I don't know. Probably not. There's a lot of fucking buildings out there. After what I've seen in the last 5 years, do I think that was something that was surprising? No, I don't.
Let me rephrase my question.
Yeah.
How do you think they handled the situation? Do you think the way they handled this situation
Who?
The government, the security, whatever it may be, the police? You said your friend sent you a text message saying that if you enter the Capitol building, you're getting shot. Especially with everything that's going on in society and stuff that's way less severe. People get shot for way less. Yeah. Do you think
if that were, let me ask you this, if that were a Black Lives Matter protest, do you think there would have been that few cops there?
No.
Exactly.
No.
That's my point.
Yeah.
It was the police officers who were there were in a situation to fail. There were like 5 of them. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think that is, though?
You gonna make me put on my tinfoil hat?
Nah, let's get to it, man. Let's get to it. I'm interested to hear why do you think that is?
The Capitol riot was particularly annoying to me. Not because I could have seen the censorship coming behind that and that making it never fucking go away, but it just kept the conversation going out. We couldn't just get a fucking transition of power and move on with life. Now we have this thing that happened where people are righteously pissed. But I looked at it and I said, who's in charge of the security there? Forget Trump being totally careless. Like, let's be clear here. They scheduled that rally like 4 weeks before. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about the NCAA, people being in a room before the Rich Paul rule goes out. You know how many people are in the fucking Oval on a daily basis, or in the offices around the Oval, and not one person said, getting like 500,000 not very happy people about how the election went after the election was certified to come to Washington, D.C. while the government is in session. There could be a couple things to go wrong here. No one asked that question, so I have no sympathy for them whatsoever. What I will say is that it's not like anyone, regardless of political party, who is in the established order of business in Washington, D.C., like Donald Trump, right? That was something the Republicans and Democrats there had in common. And whoever's making the decisions to set up security and how that goes around that building is not him.
Yeah.
So why were there 5 fucking cops there?
That's my question.
Right? It's like, okay, you had all these cops in fucking military gear when all the protests were going on over the summer. I'm not even going to say that was wrong. There was some crazy shit happening where the protests weren't protests anymore, and there were a select group of people who ruined it for everyone else. Fine. Well, it needs to work both ways. You have a fucking million people flying into Washington, D.C. who are pissed off. Why do you not have the 435 or 535, whatever? Yeah, it's like 535 total, I think, Senate, Congress, right? Yeah. Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Whatever. The fucking 500 people in there who are conducting government business, why are they not protected?
That's my biggest thing. That was my biggest question. 1, why aren't you prepared? 2, if the roles were reversed and it was a different group of people, the outcome would have been different. Yeah,
more people were getting shot.
Yeah.
If roles were reversed.
Yeah, and
I don't.
It's a crazy thing to think about. Honestly,
it is. It's tough watching those videos though and seeing. I mean, again, the cops were in an unwinnable situation, right? They had all these people coming in there, and there's 5 of them.
Yeah,
it's tough when you see some of the videos where they were literally like, "All right, back her up, Sean." And they're like taking the fucking ridiculous thing down, like, "All right, walk this way." It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What do you like? Call in backup, something. At least, like, make the call.
Definitely. And now that, since we're on this conversation, in terms of how officials handle stuff and deal with certain things, in the light of the shooting that happened in Boulder, I'm sure you saw that, and the stuff that happened with the Asian community. Prayers out to everybody that was involved and affected by that. How do you feel about how when mass shootings happen, when the racial disparity, if it's I'm gonna use the racial, when it's a white person,
go there,
versus a black person, they're handled differently. From your perspective, because we come from 2 different worlds, so I want to see like your views, what you see, and why that type of thing happens.
I think the media plays a huge role. That's for the first thing I got to say is I think the media is full of shit.
Okay.
I think that they are a groupthink machine that operates on how to get to the next profit. And like any business, we talked about free markets earlier. That's how the free market's set up. And I think they wear the veil of wokeness over a face of disdain for that wokeness. And so I think that when they create situations where they come out and pretend to be all about racial equality, and I'm just picking the highest level issues, right? And all this shit, and then sell the same, they're part of the same problem because they don't. The only example I ever saw where I felt like, okay, that was good how they treated that one, like they really demonized him, was like the Dylan Roof scenario. Okay. But what did we see in that situation? Remember how he was like taken into custody? I think it was like pretty peaceful. And you're just like, all right, turn around. Like, that's not a media problem. I'll admit, that's not their fault.
It's not a media problem.
Right?
I don't
but
think that's a media
that's
problem.
Another institutional problem. Yeah. So that part wasn't good. But the media vilified him, and righteously so. Okay. How many situations, though, do we see where, we were using the example earlier of judges more likely to put a higher bail or bond on Latino and black defendants than they are white defendants? Why do you think that is? Part of it could be built-in prejudices, sure. Part of it could be subconscious, where they really don't mean it. They don't know they're doing it, right? Which still doesn't solve the problem, but at least they're not a racist asshole. The other part of it is the programming they've taken for years and years. Like the Central Park 5, they showed all their mugshots.
All of them.
All of them on TV. Every single one. Does someone look good in a mugshot? No, they do not. Right? You know, and you'll see it. You'll see the marketing around this stuff.
And at the time, before his president, Trump he bought a whole page talking about they deserve the death penalty, whatever it may be.
What did I tell you earlier? The guy, if you let him talk, he'll shoot himself in the foot.
Yeah.
It's so true. He took that out, and like, I think he later said like he got that one wrong quietly, but say it as loud. Say it as loud as you said it in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's where people have a problem with people like Trump, and they should. You know, and that's the court of public opinion. Why is a real, and I know this is 1988, we're legislating something from back then, but let's do it. Why is a real estate tycoon with a building on 57th Street in Manhattan commenting on a case that hasn't even like gone to a jury trial yet?
At all.
And say, he was like Fryam or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Something of that nature. Something gruesome.
Stupid. Why? Like, what do you think of that? The court of public opinion we have now. Do you think people can even get a fair trial in this country?
Bro, it's hard.
Yeah.
I feel as though it's supposed to be, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. I think it's reversed nowadays.
It is. I agree.
You're guilty until you can prove that for reasonable doubt that you didn't do what you did. And it shouldn't be that way. I feel as though like everybody should have their day in court. I say that all the time. Everybody should have their day in court. Even if you, if you did commit the crime, you should still have your day in court. Tell your side of the story. At the end of the day, you still did the crime. You feel me?
Yeah.
You're gonna get your punishment, but say what you have to say. Doesn't mean it's gonna change anybody's opinion, but you should be able to say what you have to say. That's where you get judged. But I mean, I don't know. It's something interesting to think about, and I wonder if that's ever going to evolve, or that's ever going to change. Where we get to the point where we really judge people off of facts instead of opinions that are put in front of us.
I think that's going more and more downhill every day.
Yeah.
I think we're getting farther and farther away from the facts part. Not that we were ever 100% there.
Yeah.
But
I think facts get lost nowadays.
And I empathize with the people in the situations too, until they do something fucked up. What I mean by that, when you see prosecutors just trying to get a win, it's gamified, right? They want. How many prosecutors do you see get a big job as a defense attorney, open up a big firm after they became a prosecutor? All of them. I'm not saying they're all bad for doing that, right? But if they, their job isn't to be the Pope, right? And be like, you know what? You probably didn't do this crime. You know what, Jim? We'll leave that one unsolved. No, they're going to get fired for that. Because the system tells them that, oh, no, you can't do that. You have to get a result.
Yeah.
You have to get a result.
Yeah.
And there has to be a point, though, where you take accountability on that. And I don't want to pick on people publicly and take political sides with public figures, but we have seen plenty of people, because a lot of lawyers become politicians, who openly, prior to ever holding office, when they were prosecutors and stuff, did fucked up things. They wanted to win because that's going to get them the next job. And so they suppress evidence. They don't give a fuck whether someone's innocent or guilty. They need a result. And they also, how many times have we seen false confessions of people who are put into that position psychologically to do so?
Yeah, that happened in the Central Park 5. If you watch the documentary, the kid that was a 17-year-old, I can't remember his name, so I don't even want to get it wrong. But they made him, they kind of forced him to say something that wasn't true, and they did force him to say something that wasn't true, and that he was in jail for a long period of time, lost a lot of his life because he didn't know the situation when he was in.
I'm working on getting a very close friend of mine who's an extremely busy guy. So I don't want to say who he is or whatever, but working on getting a really close friend of mine in here who's, let's just say his background is interrogation. Okay. Right? One of the preeminent interrogators in the history of this country. And I want to talk to him about that a lot. Yeah. Because he absolutely had to get results. Have to. And he worked in the biggest of places, and he's very, very open, and like he's brutally blunt about cases in his career. Like, nope, this one was wrong. Yep, that one was right. Like, he'll fucking tell you what it is. But one of the things I have at least broached with him that I want to go deeper into is the psychology of it. You have a guy who's in there who you think may have done this thing or whatever. And because your hunch is that, and you may very well be right, but there's the off chance that you're wrong. Are you thinking about there's the off chance that you're wrong? Or are you going in there thinking about how for the next, after making him sit there with his thoughts in an empty room with mirrors around him, how you're going to get him to go crazy after 6 hours and then force him into a corner where he accidentally says something that's not true. I forget the psychological terms. I don't want to fuck him up, but he'll know them, right? Yeah. How much of that happens, and then how many times do you look back 2 years later or a month later? Like, I don't know about that one.
I think that happens a lot more than we think.
Probably.
There's a lot of situations. I mean, everybody has their breaking point. Everybody has their threshold. Like, when we were talking about would you rather somebody be blunt and be upfront racist and talk down to you, whatever it may be, but allow you to get your money, I feel as though everybody has their threshold of how much they can take from that. Like, there's going to be some point where I'm not going to allow you, I don't care how much money I'll make you with you, you're not talking to me this way.
Sure, yeah.
I'm not going to allow you
Principle.
Yeah, it's that principle. Do you think principle, I want to get away from the law stuff, do you think when it comes to business, do you think principle gets lost because people just want to win?
Absolutely. Oh my God, absolutely. I've seen it all the time. In smaller situations.
Yeah.
People want a result. They care about what other people think of them. They want to and now we live in this social media society where people got to, put $25,000 in cash on a Lambo to say they're doing something.
Yeah. And I want to speak on that a little bit. Because, like, with the industry I'm in and the things that I do with, like, marketing and advertising, I see that all the time. People want that viral moment. But I always pose the question, wouldn't you rather build a back catalog of information, a back catalog of things that prove you are what you're trying to be, and then get on so people can prove it? Or would you rather get in a situation where you catch a viral moment, now people are expecting that from you, but you don't even know how you got there?
You ask your potential clients that?
I talk to, not even just asking this, I have conversations, honest conversations. I tell them there's different routes you can go all the time. You can say, I just want to try to get a viral moment, catch it. It's all about what people want out of the situation they're trying to get. Because some people nobody comes in with the same motives. Some people just want to come in, get the viral moment, get what they can get out of that moment and move on to the next thing and use that as leverage, whatever it may be. But some people, they have aspirations to be in it for the long haul, so they understand that, they can comprehend that.
Such a good question, man.
Yeah.
I'm just really thinking about that. I don't want to respond right away because I feel like that's the core of a lot of issues, regardless of industry. It's the core of, like, how social media tribal culture is to get results.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are those results? I used a very stereotypical example of the kid with $25,000 in cash on a Lambo. Okay, that's ridiculous. But how many people are doing things that maybe aren't that visceral, that are strictly to get that viral moment and say, like, I am, when they're not.
They're not.
They don't really know this thing.
They don't.
And then also, I feel really bad for people who get a lot of attention at a young age. People look at, like, Justin Bieber and say, look at all the mistakes he made along the way. Okay. If you had every teenage girl in America not allow you to walk anywhere without getting moshed at the age of 13 and never knew another reality, you're telling me you wouldn't make some mistakes too?
You're going to make mistakes.
You're out of your fucking mind.
You're 13. You haven't even had a chance to experience anything.
His balls haven't dropped. So I empathize with it, and that's all our shared experience. But I think that's such a great question. I'm impressed that, especially in the business you're in, where it would almost behoove you to not ask a question like that, because chances are you're talking to people, they want to have what the other people have. Yeah. And then you walk in and say, well, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Some people are going to be like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah, because they see the end result, bro. They see the end result. They don't understand what it takes to grab that. They don't understand what it takes to. They don't understand what it means to be LeBron James at 15 and be a star and have that pressure on you and have to walk on a tightrope. You go left to right the wrong way, you're gonna get crucified. How many times have we seen him get crucified for the littlest things? Yeah. They were saying he was the greatest when he was 15 years old. And have to live with, if you don't live up to being the greatest of all time, you're a bust.
Bro, not you are hitting everything today. I love this.
Yeah, if you don't, not if you have a good career, you don't win championship. If you're not the greatest of all time in our generation, not even our generation of all time, you are a bust in the NBA.
So I want to get your thoughts right on that example, though.
Yeah.
Because we've already talked about LeBron today. But I have a very mixed relationship with LeBron James.
Okay.
Very mixed.
Okay.
First of all, I don't think he gets enough credit for a lot of the great things he does, backing up, never forgetting where he came from off the court, including when he went to Miami. He never lost his roots with Akron, ever. Yeah. Right? Like, I really admire that. I think the I Promise school is crazy, in a good way. Like, just awesome what he's doing there. I think it also touches people of all backgrounds, too, who happen to come from a similar community in that they don't have a lot of resources, right? So it's all around. Things like that are a beautiful thing. We've commented today on some of the power he gives athletes. I think a lot of that is positive. I do think LeBron James is a raging narcissist, as a lot of these guys are. And he does bother me sometimes with how strong he is on opinions. I get similar vibes from him sometimes from a very different angle that I do from Trump.
Explain that. Go into that a little, because I'm not gonna say I've never heard that opinion, but
it's an out there opinion.
Yeah, I've heard it a few times, but not too many.
He is very, especially politically, he got very active when it came to Trump versus Hillary, and since then he's been very, very active on things. And I think that, not that he shouldn't speak his mind. Like, I don't agree with what the fuck.
The girl said "shut up and dribble" thing. You don't agree with that?
Oh my God, no!
Okay,
I wasn't. That's another level. She's out of her fucking mind for saying
I know what
that.
you were saying when it came to that. Yeah.
Same ladies praising John Voight for giving the vote for God and Trump at the front of the fucking RNC. People have their own opinions based on their own biases. She's fucking crazy for saying that. Yeah. I wasn't even gonna go there. Next level down, where you see like Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Okay.
Is that how you say his name?
That's pretty.
The soccer player.
Yeah, you pronounce it probably better than I could.
Who's a savage? That guy's fucking. If you ever listen to him, he's like crazy. Yeah, it's hilarious to listen to him. But he gives the opinion a few weeks ago on LeBron with politics, and some of what he's getting at, I agree with. But he was basically saying to LeBron, "Don't talk on any of it. I don't talk on any of it, so you shouldn't either." And that's wrong, right? LeBron should be able to speak on things. I think LeBron is very, very dismissive of other things. I empathize with the fact that a lot of it has to do with his experience and how he feels like the same people he dismissed have dismissed him his entire life.
All right, let's talk about the dismissive. What do you think he's very dismissive of?
I think he's dismissive of anyone, like you talked about earlier, like the black community, anyone who would dare... How is my phone ringing? I have my phone on airplane mode.
Happens. It's all good.
That's some crazy shit. Anyway, all right. Well, that's nuts. Fuck, Apple's slacking. Anyway, I know for a fact it's on airplane mode and do not disturb. So that's some wild shit. Anyway, so where was I with LeBron? And
you're talking about he's very dismissive.
Yeah. So I think that, like you talked earlier about people in the black community who wouldn't vote Democrat and stuff like that. He is clearly very dismissive of people who would dare not vote for those candidates or whatever.
Do you think so?
I do. I could be wrong about that. That's the way it appears. What I will hedge that with is I'll say how much of that has to do with the fact that it was Trump in there when he was saying this stuff. Probably a lot of it, right? So it could be more just he really fucking hates Trump and can't imagine someone voting for him, which I would empathize with. But I feel like a lot of the narrative is always about him. Now, that's where the narcissist point comes in. And this is where I have a lot of empathy, and this is why I have such mixed emotions. And like, he's an unbelievable player. He is the greatest athlete I have ever seen in my life. And I used to watch the tape of Bo Jackson. No disrespect to Bo. Incredible. Deion Sanders, incredible. No one's ever been 6'9" and run like a goddamn gazelle. And I don't know what he benches.
Probably can excel in NFL, other sports as well.
Dude,
without a doubt.
He'd have been the best fucking football player, best everything, right? Phenomenal. If I were 14 years old, 13 years old, came from nothing, didn't have a dad in the house, had a mom who at least appears to have had some issues at some point or another, like did not have a total, in any way, stable environment. And all these fucking slick back hair white dudes were coming up to me, calling me the king, calling me the chosen one, putting me on the cover of Sports Illustrated at 16. Anyone who says that they would not have narcissistic tendencies out of that is not thinking of it clearly. Of course you would. That's not his fault. In my opinion, that's an environment thing. And I also think, and like sometimes I get frustrated and I'll like lash out at shit he says where it's like, come on. Like the fucking Jacob Blake thing, that bothered me. That he made that all about him. Jacob Blake, while we can all agree that was a donut patrolman who looked, you're not allowed to say the word I was about to say, who looked like an idiot. On camera, you know what I was about to say. On camera, like freeze, like he had never used a gun in his life. We can all agree, like that was crazy. But the whole situation of like, well, who was Jacob Blake? What was he doing? This is a guy who shoved an iPhone up a female's, you know what, and then broke a restraining order, and then had 3 kids in the car and whatever, and was a fucking predator. And they almost shut down the whole fucking league over him. You need to think about that. You need to think about the fact that they tried to tase him twice. They tried to restrain him, I think once, right? And so the end result was wrong, right? Like that's not what we want to see. But he was also approaching a car with 3 children in the back, unhinged, right? And LeBron shuts down the whole league over that and made it all about him. All, in my opinion, all about him. When I see shit like that, I do get pissed off. I do get pissed off at that because I'm like, okay, this is not about you. There's a bigger problem here. It's another example of a cop clearly not knowing how to do his job correctly. Why was the guy not restrained correctly the first time? It shouldn't be that hard, you know? Like you can think all these things at once. So I do have mixed emotions on him, but I come back to the positive over the negative because he had very few opportunities in life. And he fucking knocked out of the park the greatest opportunity he had and has built on top of it and done a lot of positive to reinforce what he did by helping the communities he came from. That is my end result with him. Mm-hmm. Probably vaguely my opinion, but I just want to give you the context.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, when it comes down to the thing of always being in the limelight, I mean, you probably could get a big head over time.
Sure.
Like it's inevitable at the end of the day when you're climbing, like you said, the spotlight's on you. So what I got out of what you said was pretty much that, like when he talks about certain situations, it always somehow, some way circles back to him. And not every time, but like in some instances where you feel like the spotlight should be on that situation and not on LeBron, it somehow gets back to LeBron.
Yes.
And you don't like that.
Don't love that. No.
Okay.
That's a lot of. Let's be honest though.
No,
I could say that about Bezos.
No. I've heard that before. That's what I'm saying. That opinion, I've heard that before. I know. I have some friends that absolutely dislike LeBron to like the highest extent. Like not to the point, even more than you know how you said you dislike that certain part of them. They don't like LeBron on a larger scale. Which is
I know a lot of people like that too.
And me, I don't necessarily understand how you could hate someone so much that when you talk about the American dream, you can almost say that he embodies that when it comes to coming from nothing.
Completely.
And he does what he has to do. When he got to that stardom, he reached back and grabbed people, his team around him. Rich Paul, Mav Carter.
Yep.
And then
loyal to all his people.
Loyal to all his people, put him in positions of power. Yep. His team around him from the jump they're all winning.
All of them.
And then he reached back and gives back to the youth and serves as an inspiration to them. He's not one of those people where you can't. He's tangible to the masses. He's tangible.
And needs to be said, does a better job than Jordan did of that. Yeah. No question.
Yeah.
And you could say Jordan didn't have the social media resources of his era, fine, but no question about that. But
when people always bring that up about Jordan in that comparison, because that's always when you get off the court.
Keep going.
Yeah, when you get off the court.
I don't know what's wrong with my phone, but keep going.
And it comes to that comparison after you get past comparing them as basketball players, as athletes, or whatever it may be. People always go back to, LeBron does more off the court than maybe that's not Jordan's calling. That's why I say all the time. Everybody doesn't have the same calling in your life. Jordan's calling may not have been to reach back and give back. Not saying that he shouldn't, but that may not be his focus. When I look at, I don't know how big you're into hip hop, but like Meek Mill, I use Meek Mill for example. He went to jail and all of a sudden he kind of got thrown into prison reform. And he tells people all the time, this is not something I wanted to do, but I kind of just got put in that position. So he's doing the best he can in that situation. He gets backlash all the time. Like you're supposed to be this person of reform, justice reform. You're out here doing outlandish stuff, whatever it may be. But it's like sometimes people are propelled into that position without being ready for it. And that takes me back to what we talked about, that question that I posed to you. Do you just want to have that viral moment and not be prepared for it? Have that stardom and fame and not having any experience, so when you get to that position, you don't know what to do with it? Or would you rather go through trials and tribulations for a period of time, so when you have when that time comes, you know how to react and you know how to handle certain situations? And that's what it comes to when I'm talking to different people about what they're trying to do with their careers.
Well, you're talking about Meek Mill before we even go back to that whole, like, do you want the one viral moment? And, like, not to say that his whole situation was one viral moment, because you even said it yourself. He didn't choose to become a spokesman for that whole movement and everything. But I think the thing that pissed everyone off about that is, I mean, the judge was crazy. Yeah. Obviously.
Of course.
But the things he did in, what was it, 2008? Something like that?
2008.
Yeah. What was he? 19 at the time? 20? Something like that?
Yeah. Very young.
He was being held to, before he was even big, he's being held to that same, like, oh, you're the same guy doing a little bit of some crazy shit when you were that age. When he's older and now has a huge fucking target on him because he's really popular. Not to say, like, he didn't do a couple stupider things when he was bigger, but was this guy hurting people? Was he out there causing enormous problems? No, he was not.
Exactly.
And a judge cherry-picked the situation and say, Mr. Meek Mill, you violated your probation. I'm sending you to jail. What we talked about deterrence earlier. What fucking deterrence is that? That's a judge trying to make a case, swing their big dick on the table and say, look what I can do.
Yeah.
So I think even when you look at, like, these people who have, like, the viral moment with that, not that he needed a viral moment, this just made him an icon and whatever. I think we have to think about the context on it too, because a lot of people don't choose that moment. I mean, technically no one chooses a viral moment, but some people try to hit for it.
They try to hit for it.
Right. But B, what is the importance of that viral moment, and how much can defining you by that, or as a part of your definition being, I'm getting a little complicated, but having a part of you defined by that also have positive ramifications in the future? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it can definitely have positive ramifications, but it's based on your track record at the end of the day, in my opinion. Like, when you hit that viral moment like Meek Mill, the reason that I feel as though in the beginning it went so well for him and he had so much support is because he had that back catalog and people saw what he came from. That story was already there. People understood his relationship with that judge that he was going back and forth with, who was asking Meek and Nicki Minaj to perform for her, or she's gonna send him back to prison. Like, there's some crazy stuff that was going on, and the things that he did at 16, 17, when he was young, whatever, in the environment that he was in, lingered with him and stuck with him because of his probation until he was 30 years old.
How many things could you and I have been arrested for that we did at 16 and 17?
Bro, there's probably plenty of things that, as just young kids, just doing dumb stuff.
5 just came into my head.
Yeah, and it's just like, at that point in time, that's when I say, when we, even going back to the beginning of our conversation about different circumstances and scenarios and having to judge accordingly. When we're young in high school doing dumb stuff, our parents know that we're still learning. Yeah, they're hard on us, but they don't put us in a position where we can't learn from it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, so Meek Mill, he's 16, 17, whatever it may be. Okay, he learned from that situation. Why should that stick with him for the rest of his life? If it's not something that is super detrimental, like killing somebody or whatever, like the examples we gave prior. If it's something where he did something dumb as a kid, whatever it may be, if he learned from it, understand what he did, why should that still be his reality 15 years later?
And the judge trying to say that he didn't learn from it because he violated some terms of his probation.
Yeah.
What were those violations? I don't even remember what they were, but
yeah, I don't know exactly what it is, but you know,
wasn't hurting people.
Yeah. Like if you're communicating with somebody else that's a felon or whatever it may be.
Oh, that's the stupidest one.
You can go back to prison.
That's the stupidest one. It's like,
I think what he did was he forgot to tell his parole officer that he was crossing, like, the border from Jersey to, like, New York to go pick up his kid or something like that.
And I'm not even saying, like, is that technically a mistake according to the agreement he had? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But context. You know, is he running around shooting off guns in the middle of the street because, you know, he wants to blow off steam? No, he's not. Okay, you want to complain about that? Say that violates probation, needs to go to jail. Okay, all right, I guess you have an argument there. we make these, we make these crazy stipulations. Again, it goes back to like, well, what's really being corrected?
Mm-hmm.
Is a free man really free when they get free, or are they on parole for fucking 10 years?
They're not really free at the end of the day.
No.
You don't have a chance to come out of that in a lot of senses. Even with the Bobby Shmurda situation.
What was that situation? I don't know much about that.
So like obviously with the song, like I don't know the details of the case, but him and his friends did whatever. They all got jail time. Bobby took some rap for some of his friends, so everybody get less jail time and everybody's kind of even. Now he's out, and his parole is something where he has a curfew at 8 for the next 5 to 7 years. He can't be around any felons, talk to any felons or something like that. He can't drink alcohol or whatever it may be for the next 5 to 7 years. So it's like you're putting these constraints. You're putting somebody in a position to go back to where they just came from.
Yeah.
And it's hard, like especially with all the things and temptations that are going on in the world. Yes, maybe they shouldn't have done that when they were younger, but they were teenagers when that happened as well. Because Bobby, he's our age, maybe younger.
What was? I'm trying to think. Was it one thing with him, or was it several? I just want context.
I think it was probably multiple things. I don't know because I don't know the details, but it was probably like minor things. You feel me? A couple minor things.
Either way.
Yeah, either way it goes. Yeah. You feel me? And now he comes out. You feel me? He has all this starting because people have been waiting for him to come out because he had that viral moment at that time. He was at the height of his. He was very early, but it was like he was on. Like people knew who he was, about to take off. So people have been waiting for that. Now you have all these things going on, and you're already in a situation because you have to watch how you move in front of all the cameras and stuff like that. And people have to remember this. When you're in prison, bro, it's a whole different world in there. You've been out of society for 7 years. Think about how much society changes from 1 to 2 years, 3 to 4 years. Now imagine 7. You have to get acclimated to the way people are moving nowadays with social media and things of that nature. Now, and on top of that, you're a superstar. Everybody's watching you. You talked about Justin Bieber and having to move and navigate life as a 13-year-old. How do you think someone coming out of prison is that hasn't been in society? He has to get reacclimated. And I was reading something where it was on Twitter. A lawyer was talking about one of the people that just came out of prison that she was representing. And she had to teach, he was in there for like 10 to 15 years. She had to teach him how to send an email, use a laptop. He's never used a laptop before. And he has to get acclimated back into society. And people forget those things. It's hard for someone coming out to get back to a normal lifestyle if you haven't been around for what's evolved, what's going on in society today. It's hard enough. And then you put these restrictions on somebody to almost set them up to fail. Granted, yeah, you should pay for your crime or whatever it may be, but when you put somebody back into society, I don't think you should put them in a position that's going to set them up to fail again, to put them back to where they just came from. What sense does that make?
Well, the system's set up to do that. Right
no,
now.
No, of course, but I'm saying the grand sense of what sense does that make?
It makes no sense. It's what we talked about right at the beginning. Department of Corrections, nothing gets corrected.
Yeah,
it's not set up for that.
Yeah.
Do you think they set up Florence Supermax Prison as a correction facility? No, they set it up as lock you in a box and throw away the key. It's not if you're gonna do it, call it what it is. And it's another thing. Tough answer. I mean, it's what we started this entire conversation with. There's tough answers to some of this stuff. I had mentioned that this was a topic that came up with Anthony D'Appolito, and one of the examples I used, and I just keep hearing it through themes you're giving, but one of the videos I watched a few weeks ago was for an emotional one to watch, where a kid, he was like 22, had been found guilty of first-degree murder, and he had planned to rob a pizza delivery guy who was a kid, and then it went south and he killed him. And the father of the victim at the sentencing got on the stand, and I don't blame parents of the victim who get on the stand and say, "Fry him. Your kid was taken away." Like, you're gonna be mad.
Super emotional. Emotions are running out. Of course, you have some type of feeling.
I have no judgment on that, right? So I don't want to say like the other parents are wrong for doing that. This guy got up there and he turned to the judge. It was a capital murder case, by the way. Could be given the death penalty. Turned to the judge and he said, my son died. I can't change that. He didn't deserve to. We all agree with that. This guy killed him. We all agree with that. That happened. Not that we agree with it. But what about this kid's background? Broken home, never had a shot, had all his eggs in the basketball basket, which didn't work, had no money, no future, got in with the wrong people because he had no guidance at a young age, 18, 19. You know, my kid wasn't in with the wrong people, and then was desperate and did something really stupid that can't be undone. Are we going to say that now 2 lives have to end because somebody who has to take responsibility for their actions, don't get me wrong, was put in a system that's set up to fail? I don't think that's the way we go here. And then he got up and he hugged the guy. And you could say, you could see it in that kid. This kid's in an orange jumpsuit. He did it, right? You see that human moment, and you see him recognize, like, it all hits him. And then the judge had to excuse herself. She was like in tears. And she came back, and I think she gave him like 20, 25 years, which is a lot of fucking time. It's going to ruin his life, right? But there's a light at the other end of the tunnel. And I'm not saying everyone needs to be the Pope there and be able to have that strength or whatever, but it does make you think, you know, what are we... How do you make those judgments? How do you balance, right to the beginning of the whole conversation here once again, but how do you balance that whole deterrence versus also, okay, certain things can't be undone. How do we fix this moving forward? How do we put someone in the right mental position to try to fix themselves? If you don't think that kid is now going into jail right now with an entirely new perspective on life because of the power of that moment, you've lost your mind.
Yeah.
He has, I guarantee you, he's going to have a relationship with that father for the rest of their natural lives. You know, and I see something like that, and of course, it's a special moment, right? It's emotional, it's heavy, but you wish more of that could be injected into situations, not just with crime and punishment, but with anything in society. Like, have some empathy, you know?
You gotta have some empathy for people for sure, and like, with that being said, like, outside of like crime and punishment, just have empathy for people in their situations, and because I always try to put myself, now I'll say this, I always try to put myself in other people's shoes when it comes to situations like that. That common theme's been like perspective. So it's like when you get into a situation, it's like, why did they react that certain way to whatever it's being done? Has there like in junior college taught me this, because a lot of people that don't know about junior college, I went to Garden City Community College. It's one of the top junior college football teams, but like the environment there is crazy. You really, that's the place where I say I became a man, quote unquote. And
why?
And I say that because when you're in junior college, it's a melting pot of people that come from Division I. They didn't do what they had to do. People that were overlooked. People that maybe messed up and missed their opportunity to capitalize. Or people that come from backgrounds, came out of jail and are trying to get a second chance at what they were chasing after before they went in there. And you have to learn to deal with so many different backgrounds. And empathize with people and how they react to something. Like, and that's why I empathize with coaches and how they deal with situations. Coaches are almost like the greatest like game man. Some coaches, I'll say, are like almost the greatest like life managers. Not even game managers, but life managers, because you have to deal with somebody not only on the football field but outside of the football field.
I like that you said some, by the way.
That's some, because not everybody's good at it, and some people have to realize they aren't. But I'll say my coach Sims, that was in JUCO, he was good at that. He was good at getting the best out of somebody. He wouldn't let you be mediocre when he saw you had that potential to be something great. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like there's few and far between people that know how to do that, to push the right buttons to get the right thing out of you. You know what I'm saying? So like back to moments where maybe you're broken or you hit rock bottom. Not everybody knows how to bounce back to that. I did, like, when I went through situations where, like I told you before, like I had every accolade probably you could think of when it comes to like football, like All-State, that type of stuff. But when I went to Kansas State for the first time to try to follow my pops' footsteps, my brother's footsteps, and go there and play football, I got cut the day one. They gave us a walk-on trial cut day one. Never been cut from a football team in my life.
Day one. So they didn't really look at it.
They didn't really look at it. I'm saying they gave me opportunity. I'm saying, and granted, the year before, going into my senior year, they're talking about, I'm going to offer you a scholarship, this and that. But they see, oh, you got nerve damage, so walk on and we'll give you opportunity.
Oh, that's when they said it.
Yeah, come on, walk on. We'll give you opportunity. You need to get a little stronger. We'll give you opportunity. Get there. Day one cut. So I take a bet on myself. I said I'm leaving here. You know what I'm saying? I didn't reach my goal here. That's my first time I failed when it came to football. Went to junior college. First year got redshirted, came kind of late. The coaches didn't even know I was gonna be there. I got connected by a mutual friend, my brother's friend, Jeff Kelly. He was defensive coordinator at the time. He's like, come here, you can walk on, whatever it may be. Get an opportunity to try to get a scholarship somewhere else. So I'm thinking I'm playing for somebody I know. Whatever, he leaves, goes to Fort Scott. First year I redshirt, don't even get to play. Whatever it may be, in practice squad, all that stuff. Second year comes around, new coach. This is first year Coach Sims comes in. So I'm thinking I'm gonna get a new opportunity, new fresh set of eyes. Doesn't really happen like that. I go through camp. And what people need to know about junior college in Kansas junior college at the time when I was in there, only 20 out-of-staters make the roster. Over 150 kids get invited to the camp. Like over 60% have to be Kansas kids because the Kansas junior college is made for that. Yeah. And you feel me? So I got to that point. I'm competing with guys that are in the league now, starters in the NFL. But I feel as though
who was there? I'm just curious. Like who was?
So you have Lonnie Johnson. He's a starting DB for Houston, Texas. Yep. You have who else is in the league right now? The guy that came after me. I'm trying to think who else is on that team that went to the league. The corner for the Vikings. He came after me. He went to UCF. I forget his name. Mike something. I forget his last name. Yeah, I can't think of his name right now. Lonnie Johnson was there, but there's a couple other guys. Some guys that you never heard of that should have been in the league, but they couldn't make it.
Sure.
You feel me?
It's cool that some people actually did through the system. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. There's a couple guys that made it. But Arlington Hambright, he starts for the he's an offensive lineman, starts for the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
He's my guy. So back to the story at hand. I got to that point. I'm thinking I'm gonna get an opportunity to make it. I did everything I had to do. Comes down to the day where cuts are being made. You're gonna be the first person that if somebody gets hurt, you're gonna be on the roster. Oh, so you mean I didn't make it? I went through all this. You give me an opportunity, whatever it may be, and didn't make it. So the crazy thing about that situation is, game one, my boy Alex Figueroa breaks his foot. Linebacker ahead of me breaks his foot, and I'm thinking this is my opportunity. By the grace of God, week one, I'm gonna get my opportunity to play a full season, get a scholarship to go to the next round. Doesn't happen. He puts a quarterback on the roster ahead of me.
At linebacker,
not a linebacker, but puts a quarterback on the roster. Just as a position to fill, because you have 20 slots out of state.
Yeah.
It's like I think quarterback will help us. But that was the first time I ever just broke down and just cried, bro. And that was I hit rock bottom. I had a moment in time where I could have been like, I'm at rock bottom. I'm just gonna give up on this dream, whatever it may be, and just go back to where I was failed.
Is this your second year?
This is my second year there. Okay. So JUCO, you usually get 2 years.
Yep.
It's my second year there. I'm just at rock bottom, bro, and it's just like I have an opportunity to either let rock bottom just bury me and not come back from there. Some people would have just left because they don't know how to handle that situation. But because of my background, my whole life, I've been doubted with the nerve damage in my arm, and I've overcame that over and over again. I knew how to handle that situation. It's like, I'm going to keep going and prove them wrong. So every day at practice until like week 6 of the season, I was coming at the best player, trying to take that up every day in practice, going hard every day. Like, you pick this person over me, you pick this person, I'm going to prove you wrong. And that's just the mentality that I developed over time. Finally, like week 6, 4 games left in the season, he puts me on because the guy that had me got in trouble or something like that, kicked off the team. I got my opportunity to shine. And I think I'm about to get a scholarship to go wherever. Doesn't even happen, bro. You know what happened? A coach came to the school. He said, I'm looking for a linebacker. My coach had me and the kid that just got kicked off the team. My coach pointed at me and said, oh, I pick Myles over this guy any day of the week because of what he overcame. You know what the coach said? No, I don't think he has the ability to perform at this high level. You know what I'm saying? And that just
was that a coach from
this is a coach
ended up going to?
No. That came way after. So so it's we talked about trials and tribulations of being there, whatever it may be. I'm thinking I'm a failure, whatever. Probably like 5 months later, I'm waiting right before camp starts the following season. I get a call from CSU Pueblo. We want you, went out for scholarship, whatever it may be, go on a visit. Happens that way. I don't get much playing time at CSU Pueblo, whatever it may be, but that's not the point. The point is that at that time, even though when I got a scholarship, like, I'm not even playing. I have all these dreams to go to the next level, but I already won, bro. It's about perspective. People didn't even think I was going to get to that point.
You proved the point.
I proved the point. So like
to yourself.
Yeah, I proved a point to myself, and that's something I had to get over. And I feel like a lot of people have to get over that too, is that you're not doing stuff for the people on the outside. It's more so for yourself.
Yep.
And doing stuff for yourself at the end of the day and proving that you are what you think you are inspires the people that are coming behind you. I talked about Adrian Claiborne and how just seeing that allowed me to get to that position. I got a scholarship. My dream was to get a scholarship. So when I got that scholarship, you feel me? And sometimes I feel like people with the perception of social media and things that are going on, they get lost in what really matters. In the stuff that really means something. The accolades are cool. The money is cool. But who'd you inspire along the way? Who'd you put a battery in their back to help them get to the next level? That I think that's at the end, that's what it's really about. And we talked about Amazon and people having power and LeBron and Rich Paul. It's not so much about how much they have, it's about who you're affecting along the way. Because the biggest quote that I always think about is Tupac. I may not inspire everybody, but what? I may inspire this. I may spark this.
Spark one. Do it.
That's all that matters.
Bring it. Give the full quote to people. I love that you know this. Give the full quote.
He said, I'm gonna say not quote me on this, but he said, I may not inspire everybody. I may spark one person that may change the generation. Something along those lines.
He said, if I spark, I'm not saying I'm gonna change the world, but if I spark, but I guarantee you, I'm gonna spark the one mind that does.
Exactly, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. And once I figure that out, you feel me? Once I figure that out for myself, my whole mindset changed, bro. My whole mindset, the way I wanted to operate, the way I wanted to do things, how I conducted myself, because I know, like, even though I may not be a starter on the school that I'm in, me just competing at a high level with everything that I went through may push the guy next to me. If he's doing this with his, whatever they call it, I don't call it a disability, I call it a blessing at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Why can't I compete at that level? I have no excuse to bring everything to the table and do everything in my power to be the best version of myself. And I feel like in the same process I feel like that's part of my calling at the end of the day.
100%.
It's to show people, bro, if you believe in yourself enough, you can get exactly what you achieve. The road might not be straight and narrow. The story I just told you wasn't straight and narrow. I'm thinking out of high school, I'm gonna go straight to college, get a scholarship and be set. Nah, I still reached my goal at the end of the day of getting the scholarship and all that stuff, but the road was up and down, the ebbs and flows. We talk about in school, ebbs and flows, and that's what matters. You overcame that, and I think that's a representation of life in general. Life's never just a straight path. You're gonna have your ups, you're gonna have your downs. How are you gonna react to that moment, though? That's the biggest question. How are you gonna react to that moment? And not everybody's going to react the same. Everybody doesn't know how to react. That's why you have people that are young and go to prison at the youngest, because they may not have had that experience or had that guidance to teach them how to react. And I think you have to empathize with that on some cases. But I think if the society gets to that point where you do that and give the youth or give people the opportunity to bounce back from a position where they maybe failed or a position where they weren't doing the best or did something dumb, then that'll be all the better for what society can be as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And you even pointed out in there, like, some of the people we see on social media and right back to the comparison culture and stuff. Two things. Number one, to use a really generic one, if you see a great looking TikTok female, I see a lot of them.
Yeah.
They're great. I enjoy it. I respect talent, right? Not a lot of people look like that, right? The ones who do happen to be the ones who get on that page. Mm-hmm. On the contrary, when you see some of these people who did blow up, like the 1%, I'm not just talking about them. I'm like TikTok women and whatever. I'm talking about like a Logan Paul or something like that. David Dobrik, who's a bad example to use right now, but you know what I mean, right? Like a lot of people don't see the things that went into getting there and the journey when they got there. Mm-hmm. You know, like Logan Paul is a guy I respect the fuck out of because that kid worked. Mm-hmm. When you and I were 12, I guarantee you we weren't doing what he was doing.
Probably not.
That kid was like a 2 or 3 sport athlete and good, like really fucking good, and did pretty well in school and was building a YouTube empire, making content. Gets really big, gets to a point where he does something really stupid, right? It was like the thing in the woods in Japan, in the suicide woods or whatever, gets a lot of shit for it. You know, goes through this whole public thing where people hate Logan Paul and everything, keeps going, apologizes, keeps making content, betters himself, talks about it now openly, writes about how I was really fucked up during that point in my life. So like you see these people where first look, right? Logan Paul, huge YouTuber, viral, 1%, one of the 1%er, fuck him, whatever, no one has that. Well, there's a lot that went into getting there. There's the journey. Bro. And like I look at your journey, which is ongoing and everything, but the earliest parts, like your earliest goals, were like, all right, I have something that is telling me like I'm born in a way that says I'm not going to be this. I'm going to go be that.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get the Sunday accolades of saying, you're suiting up number 58 on the Philadelphia Eagles or whatever, maybe you don't get there. You prove the point of, I'm going to have some of my college paid for by doing this.
Yeah.
And every time I hear no, let's hope I hear it. No, you definitely went into it saying, I hope I never hear no.
Yeah.
Everyone does. Every time I do hear it, though, if it happens, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a superpower. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. And then eventually you get to a point where it's like, all right, maybe I didn't go to the NFL, but I did do this.
Yeah.
And you talk about it. You need to prove it to yourself. And I think the big paradox to that is that we have to prove these things to ourselves because we think we have to prove them to other people. That acceptance, it is important. People talk, like Gary Vee is always talking about, don't give a fuck about what anyone else thinks about you, right? Like,
that was pretty decent impersonation. I guess.
It was okay.
It was okay.
It was okay. Right. We'll get there. Yeah. Like I was a little off right there, but I'll be better later. But yes, understand that. To a strong extent, agree with him. But there is a part of you that always wants to be able to say, again, like, you want to, it's your peers and everything. You want to be yourself, so you don't want to sell yourself out. But you do want to be able to say, like, hey, according to the competition of life of what I did this thing well.
Yeah.
That is caring about what other people think, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to amend that. And I think that's exactly what you did because you wanted to prove the point to yourself, but you talk about also then being able to use it as an example for other people to come after you. Yeah. That is caring what other people think about you, but for the every single right reason. I really, really admire that.
Yeah, bro. I appreciate that. I appreciate it 100%. And the crazy thing about it is, like, I knew, like, once I got to, like, CSU Pueblo, I kind of knew, like, where it was going to go, football and all that stuff. And you know what I'm saying? I started playing my role. And I think that's important in life as well with people. You got to understand the role you're playing. You know what I'm saying? And when it comes to your purpose in life, I think everybody has a specific purpose for their individual life, but your purpose in everyone else's life differs. Because people always just think, oh, you have one purpose. This is your life's purpose. This is your goal. I think individually that's for you. But when it comes to the role you play in everyone else's life, like say you have one friend that needs you to be there as a consultant and push them in the right direction, that's your purpose in their life. It may not be your purpose like individually, but for them, that's the purpose you serve in their life. But maybe you have another friend where they need you to do whatever for them, but it differs from what you do for your other friends. And I feel like people get lost in that. They feel as though this is all I'm supposed to do, whatever it may be, but that's not the case. It's not a one-size-fits-all scenario. And people never think about it that way. And it's of a reason that I just started thinking that way. It's like, man, this is my purpose in my life. But when I started working with other people, trying to build a brand, try to build MBT, it's like Toby on my podcast, he doesn't need the same thing Shannon needs when it comes to get the best out of him, or get him to do more, whatever it may be. One because they don't have the same goals and aspirations, so you can't handle them the same.
That's important.
You feel me? A lot of people don't realize that. You don't have to be trying to build a brand. And I see that a lot of times with parents too. Like parents try to have a one-size-fits-all approach to the way they cater to all their kids, but all your kids aren't the same. And I'm not anyone to tell you how to parent your kids, but I feel like that's something you have to take into consideration. Just because one approach worked for one child doesn't mean it's going to work for the other. When it comes to your friends, just because one approach works for your friends to get the best out of them or get them to the direction that they say they want to do doesn't mean it's going to work for the next person. And I feel as though if we sit back and think about that and just understand what that really means, we'll be able to navigate certain things and certain aspects of our life and have a better quality of life. And I think it'll take a lot of stress off of us in the long run. Because you're not trying to, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? Maybe because you're not looking at it at the perspective you should be. You think this works for this person. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that type of thing?
I think it's applicable to everything in society. That's my thought. You talk about it on the most basic level, which is critical, which is like in the home. Like, what do parents want for kids, and how do they view their kids the same or differently? I'll relate it. I could relate it to a whole bunch of things, but I'll relate it to something I saw in my career. My previous career, I worked in money. Yeah. Right. So I worked with really filthy fucking rich people. Yeah. You know, people who own sports teams sometimes, and you know, money that. No offense to us, you and I. We don't get that, right? Like we don't know what that is, you know, and we're trying to figure it out. But you learn a lot about people when money's injected into the situation, and unfortunately, a lot of it can be negative. But one of the things I got really curious about throughout my career was the people who found happiness and who truly did. Not to say the people who didn't were fucked up and their life sucked. No. But who was truly like, okay, I got a great life. I got a great family. I got a great situation. I worked. I did blank, blank, blank or whatever, and here we are. I enjoy going to work every day. They're still working or in the middle of their career. Who could truly say that? And who could do create the ultimate magic trick of not inventing more problems because of money? More money, more problems is the truest song ever made.
That's crazy. I was telling my pops that today, actually, we were talking about this. Like, that's true. Now it's super true. And I'm not even to the point where I'm at that, but I see it, like people I'm associated, whatever it may be. It's like, with that, more problems definitely do come because more people start to rely on you. They think they deserve what you have. And that's something I feel as a lot of people have to get out the notion. Just because you know somebody doesn't mean when they come up, you have to come up. Yeah, they can help you and put you in a position to come up, but it doesn't mean that they are required to give you what they have.
Yeah.
And I think people get lost in that, whether it's friends, family, whatever it may be, business partners. It's that gimme. But what have you done to earn that seat at the table? Or what are you going to bring to that seat at the table if I put you there?
Yeah.
And people always talk about opportunity and I don't get this and I don't get that. And I'll bring it back to my situation. If I didn't get cut, didn't make the team or whatever a couple times, had to go through what I would go through. When I got that moment to shine and perform at a high level, I truly think that I performed it the way I performed when I got that opportunities because I went through that stuff. And I understood, like, I'm getting my shot now. I have to make the best of it because I know if I don't, I can go back to where I just was. Yep. And I don't want to go back there.
And that's, I don't even know if you know you did this, but that's another level to it. A lot of people who get a lot of wealth didn't come from it. A lot of people do. A lot of people came from it, right? And they're born into money or whatever. But a lot of people didn't come from it. And they never forget not having it. And that can work two ways, to go right back to my original point. Here. There's two roads people go with that. The road of always creating problems and never satisfied because they are paranoid and terrified, not only of, they know what it's like to have nothing, so not only of going back to not having anything, but also what about the people that come after them, their kids, and everything, and then the kids never have a shot because they're so paranoid about it, they never give their kids a chance to figure shit out, right? The other way that goes is people use that as motivation and perspective. And so the happiest people that I encountered were not necessarily the ones who had the most dollar amounts, though, you know, there were some filthy rich people I saw who I felt like really did it right. You know, they did a lot of charitable things. There was never stress, never got a bad call if the market was down. It was like, oh, okay. You know, and look, maybe if I were worth hundreds of millions of dollars approaching a B, maybe certain things wouldn't come out, at least publicly, to other people. Maybe there's a lot of problems behind closed doors that I'm just not even comfortable with talking with my private banker about. Okay, fine, right? And notably, my boss, a lot of it was witnessing what my boss dealt with, because these were his relationships by and large, right? So he was real, like, maybe there were some things I didn't see. But I would see people who were really wealthy who were happy. But, you know, if we worked with a bunch of people that my boss had worked with for years who had hundreds of millions of dollars, and then we also worked with people who had maybe 30, 40, or 50, which is still stupid money, but compared to those social circles, you know, the hundreds of millions of dollars guys, they do get the private jets and stuff.
Yeah.
30 million people, they don't really do that. Like, that's a bridge too far. And some people are at home going, oh, I'm so fucking sorry to hear that. But I'm just making I'm putting a visual relationship on it. I won't say who, because, you know, it destroys confidences, but some of the most happy people I saw, I don't know if it has to do with the number or whatever, but they were in that lower area right there.
I'm not surprised.
Because they had amassed, they by and large did not come from wealth, and they had amassed a lot of money that they had earned. In some cases, amassed less money than they were worth for what they actually accomplished. Like, they would go into social circles with people worth hundreds of millions, and the people worth hundreds of millions assumed they were too.
Yeah.
And they weren't, right? But they were never bitter about that. Because they created a great life. They always had great families too. They had, by and large, they'd have kids who had a sense of work ethic to them. So they weren't just totally giving them everything.
Yeah.
You know? And I saw these patterns where it's downstream. And where, you know, they didn't let that dollar sign become this, everyone has a handout, and now I'm going to be bitter against everyone else and create problems where there aren't any. And I'm talking a little bit complicated right now, and I know some people who obviously weren't in this world maybe can't totally understand what I'm saying, but my point is that there is a way. There is a number that for different people that is the word enough, right? There is the number that for different people says, like, wow, I've done something really special here and have a chance to take the values, not the money, the values I instilled in myself to do that and pass them down. And there are a subsect of people that, for whatever reason, be it environment, the people around them, or the choices they make, have the ability to have that perspective and then use it for good. Yeah. And so money does not have to be this totally negative thing that, like, you know, we create in society now with the wealth gap, where it's like, oh, if you have it, fuck you. Yeah. Doesn't have to be that. You know, we do have a wealth gap problem. That is a fact. Oh, yeah,
of course.
That is a fact, man.
That without a doubt is definitely a fact. But back to your point of, like, doing things for the greater good and be able to, like you said, have what you have, the value, and bring it back. That's kind of the direction I'm going in with. That is the direction I'm going with. What we're trying to do over at MBT is we're trying to create a space, create a community where people can build from the ground up, take the values that they learn from experiences that they work with other people, apply it to what they're doing, so they get to get to the big leagues. And once they get to the big leagues, from their experiences, they can reach back and grab somebody. Yep. And that's our whole model, from the ground up.
While we're on this, can you take people? I want you to take them through three things. And you know, we can attack them one by one, however you want to do it. But I want to go through MBT. I want to go through the Faces of the Future podcast, which you've had for 2 years now. Yeah. I love that. You guys have been doing it and fucking grinding for a long time, and I love the conversations.
Appreciate that.
Guy Moose is out of his mind. It's great.
Yeah, shout out Moose, man. That's my guy.
Great.
I gotta get him to have a conversation with you. I think I love that.
Dude, 100%. Like and now that I'm talking with you, I would witness in these convos, especially like some of your social clips, which are fire. I would witness how even keel you are when he just comes in with heat.
Yeah, bro.
And now I see it too. You're really right here. You are. Yeah. I love that. But side note. So I want you to tell people about that, and then I also want you to get to, because you were just hitting. You had a great monologue a few minutes ago, going through using your experiences and then therefore the platform you create as a source of inspiration for other people. Yeah. You've done that with the scholarship you've set up, and you're like fucking 25 or in your 20s setting up a scholarship. Not a lot of people do this, and it's walking the talk. So I definitely want to get to that. So that's a mouthful, but let's just start wherever you want to start, and let's go.
Let's start with we can just start about the creation of MBT. We'll start there. So MBT started in my college apartment, 2018.
What does that stand for?
Next big thing. It started off as my handle on all my social platforms. It was Next Big Thing 34. 34 was my high school number, so I had it since I started on Twitter. Next Big Thing.
Sick logo, by the way.
Appreciate that.
I'm a logo sucker. That's a simple 2-color logo. Yeah. MBT, love it.
Appreciate that. So that's when it started in college, 2018. My graduation days is when I really kind of like launched it. But the crazy thing is, we didn't start off as a media consulting type thing. It was me just posting things that I appreciated, whether it was sports. It started as a blog on Instagram, me posting and reporting stuff about stuff that I enjoy. Because before, I was just caught up in football. And I realized, I've done almost everything I could do when it came to the game. So let me explore other stuff, other creative stuff. I'm a very creative person. The other creative things that really inspire me and what I'm into, and see who attracts to it. So on game days, I'd be just posting stuff like, you're sitting in your hotel room before you go to the game. All right, this is what happened. Let me report. Let me write a little blog on Instagram and post. And I started posting, and people around the campus and friends back home was like, yo, you need to keep doing this. And some of my friends that are in music was like, oh, can you advertise my stuff? Can you post it on your blog? It got to like 1,500 followers, whatever it may be. And
you're just posting like kind of inspiring shit?
Not even inspiring, bro. It's like, oh, Meek Mill just dropped a record. I like this.
Oh, wow.
And I gave my thoughts on it, or whatever it may be.
Just very pop culture
culture, whatever it may be going on in society, and people, oh, I didn't know this happened. When did this happen? Breaking news happened. I would just write about it, write my personal thoughts on it. People gravitated to it. Followers started to grow. And like I said, I have friends that were up and coming in different industries. Like, oh, can you post about the brand that I'm doing and give your thoughts on it? Can you post about my music, give a review? So that's when I kind of realized that there's like a niche pocket that I could do is when it comes to advertising and marketing and putting people on, whatever it may be. And I realized like advertising and marketing is always going to be needed to be around. And before I even get to that point, when I first started with a couple of my friends, we were trying to do like a live stream thing where it's like, oh, this is how we're going to showcase people. We want it to be a showcase platform where we just put on people that are up and coming. Didn't work out that way. The people that I started with is doing like, I don't think I have time for this, whatever it be. So I just continue to do it myself.
You hit a good trend though.
Yeah, definitely.
Live streaming.
Yeah.
What year is this?
This is 2018.
Yeah.
We're all in different places. My boy OG, shout out OG. He helped with the logo design, all that stuff.
He did a good job.
Yeah, shout out him. And we started that. He was going to events, like we were on Facebook, like, oh, we're at the event, live stream, talking, reporting on what's going on. Some basic stuff. You know what I'm saying? But it helped us in the long run at the end of the day when it came to like the media aspect. So that climbs, you feel me? I'm ending my last football season. And at the same time, my boy Shannon, who's on the podcast, we've talked about a pod for like 2 years. I want to have our own show, whatever it may be. So I'm like, this coincides with each other. I can push the platform when it comes to the media. I can still do my creative stuff. It'll shine a light on the creative stuff that I'm doing, and we'll grow it that way. So then we got to that point, and then now we're at the point where the podcast has grown. It took a while though. It took a while. The first. If you go back and listen to episode 1, god awful. I can't even make it through it because it sounds so bad.
That's everyone, dude.
Yeah.
I will never. I never say never. I will probably never be able to sit through my first episode.
Yeah, bro.
I'll leave it up there, but
audio grainy, terrible. But we were just doing it. We just had to start. And I feel as though, before I jump to that point, if you're out there trying to start whatever it may be, and you're second guessing it, having second thoughts about it, bro, just start. Don't care about the result in the beginning. You won't know where to navigate if you never started. Don't hold on to it, whatever it may be. Start and go from there. Like I said, I started as a blog.
Why do you think people are afraid to start?
They don't want to fail, bro, in front of people.
The second part. Yeah.
They don't want to fail, bro.
They don't want to fail in front of people.
But like I told you, my point, bro, I failed in front of people when it came to the football stuff. Bro, I'd been there already. So it didn't matter to me.
Publicly, let's be honest though. This is a different level because where does everyone have their eyeballs? On the social platforms. You're putting yourself out there on the social platforms with this, whereas on football, you can hide on campus, right?
Yeah.
Technically. I'm not saying you did. I'm saying technically.
But in my situation, though, people are still looking to see what I'm doing. You have to remember, I'm coming, not that I'm like some big star or anything like that, but people that are close to me, they're still saying, oh, what are you doing? You're not playing that much. You're not really doing anything. When I failed a couple times when I was, why are you in JUCO? What is JUCO?
The doubting people.
Yeah, they're doubting. They're starting down. Oh, he's going to be one of those people, whatever it may be. You know what I'm saying? So I failed a couple times. But going back to what we were talking about, it's like, I already did that, so it didn't stop me from starting something. You feel me? So I grew into that, and now MBT has turned into a thing where, into a business, not a thing, where I'm able to consult, I'm able to help on the media side, and I'm able to push people that I think are talented and have the drive, because that's the biggest thing with me when I try to start work with. So I just want to work with you just because you're good or whatever.
So I just want to be clear. Who do you, at MBT, who do you work with, and specifically, like, what do you do for them?
Okay, so we'll start with the podcast. So the podcast is...
And that's called Faces of the Future.
Faces of the Future podcast.
Okay.
That's me, Shannon, and Moose, we just talked about. Toby. Yep. Moose is what we call him as his nickname.
He's never going to be Toby to me.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Moose. Yeah, Moose.
It's going to be Moose forever.
Manson Moose. He has all these different names, whatever it may be.
He's screwed. I don't know him, but he's screwed already.
It started off as just me and Shan. Moose was behind the camera, recording us when we had a video when we first started. And then it came to like season 2, season 3. And he's like, yo, I got something. I want to be on. I want to talk about it. And people, after he was on, people were like, I like his opinion. So we're like, come back. and it became a mainstay. By season 5, and he became a mainstay on there, and that's kind of how it grew. And people have to understand when it comes to like working with your friends and things of that nature, things aren't always going to be easy. You feel me? People think that, oh, we have a good friendship, so when it comes to like the business side, it's going to be all, like, we've had our arguments, all of you, feel me? But that's
good.
Yeah, I say that all the time. It's good to have those arguments. It's good to have those things about what direction we should be doing, or if you don't really see the vision and you have a different idea, it's like, it's good. And I say it's always good not to just have yes men around you, people that challenge you and what you're doing. And Toby and Shan, bro, I can always tell you they're gonna hold me accountable for everything I do, whether it's just a podcast or just in between the direction, because they support the brand as a whole, not just the podcast. My brother, who's behind the scenes, he works more on the music side as like an A&R and developing artist for the artist that we just signed recently, CBM Raw. He's a hip hop artist from the area.
And so when you, because you were starting with the podcast, but it's all coming together now. So when you sign people here, you're handling like their marketing and online branding.
Yeah, and everybody's a little different. You feel me? Sometimes we'll manage you if we think we have the ability to manage you and take you where you want to go. Sometimes we'll just sign you if you need video content, us to shoot a music video, or us to help you on the marketing side on social media because that's where you're lacking. We'll do that. It's a scenario by scenario basis, and it's not just artists. It's not just on air talent. It's not just entertainment. If you have a business and you don't really know how to navigate that space of marketing, come on over. We can sit down and talk. And if I personally can't do it, I can point you in the direction where somebody is, because I built that network of people. And I don't have a problem doing that.
I want to put you on the spot here. Apologies ahead of time. Put me on the spot. I do this to everyone.
Put me on the spot.
What separates you guys? There's a lot of people come out and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be an artist manager. Oh yeah, I'm going to be a social media marketer.
It's the relationship aspect. That's the biggest thing. I'm not, bro.
You give a shit.
I care. And some people don't like me for it, though.
I accept that answer. Some people would say, okay, everyone says they care, but I buy that from you 100%.
No, like I care. Like I have conversations. Even with my brother's probably like my closest friend. He's younger than me, obvious, but you know what I'm saying? Me and him get into it, not even just life when it comes to business in general, because we care for each other. We want the best. When you want the best from somebody, you want to see them succeed. Not even, doesn't have to be with you, but you want them to succeed, and you see their potential and where they could be. Once they give you that flash, you're gonna expect that from them from now on. And it's your job, if you really care about that person, to hold them to that standard. And if you have people around you just let you slack off when you say you want to obtain a goal, they shouldn't be around you, bro.
Yep.
I feel that wholeheartedly. And some of my friends, they tell me all the time, like, yeah, you pull stuff out of me that I didn't know I had. It's because I care for you. Some people, if you're slacking off, say you want to be a photographer, the top artist, or you want to be the top artist, but you're not going to the studio today and writing all this stuff, recording to perfect your craft. I'm like, bro, I thought you just told me you wanted to be the best artist around, but you're not in here crafting like you should be. You want to be the best basketball player, but you're not in the gym all the time. I'm gonna hold you accountable, and I feel like a lot of people nowadays are afraid to hold the people around them accountable. One, because they don't want to ruin that relationship they have, or two, if you don't really care for that person, you don't want to lose maybe that money or whatever that's coming with that person because you see they're talented.
So this is a touchy thing you just brought up.
Yep.
For me personally, and I think for a lot of people, but I'll speak for myself, I guess, right now. You talk about holding people accountable, and I love that because you see something in them, right? And you want them to see it through. And you, when they have tough moments, you want to be there and be like, yo, you got to keep going here.
Yeah.
Like, here's what's good. Here's what's bad. Here's what we're going to fix.
Yeah.
Like, be that honest wall to bounce ideas off of. But you have the end light at the end of the tunnel in mind. One of the things I really struggle with in my life is that I feel like I see the greatness in a lot of people, whatever their thing is. Could be anything. Could be business, could be a sport, could be music, could be anything. And one of the ultimate things that makes me sad at night is that, strictly by statistics to start, and then beyond that on a personal relationship level, I know that a lot of these people will never see that thing through. Because either they don't care about that thing that they happen to be great at, which is not their fault, by the way. Like, there are people who, you know what, here's a great example. Jamarcus Russell didn't like football. Jamarcus Russell was a fucking unbelievable talent. Probably one of the most talented, I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen an arm that powerful in my life. Just a fucking, was put on this earth to play football. Didn't like football. You know, that part's not his fault, right? Now, taking all the money and then not giving a fuck, there's a little bit there.
Yeah.
It's your fault, sure.
Of course.
But also, 21-year-old kid, who the fuck knows, right? So that's a sad thing. But it's also a sad thing when people who do want it don't see it in them, don't see what I see in them, or don't see what you see in them. And then holding them accountable, there's no holding them accountable. They don't want it.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're worried about society telling them they can't have it, or here's all the reasons they're not going to get it, but they don't fucking want it.
Or somebody telling them they should do it a different way.
Oh my God, yeah. And who, by the way, I don't know how much, like, who your inspirations are, but some guy who comes up a lot on this podcast, just people happen to bring him up, usually guests, and then we talk about it, is like Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs lived his life by saying, I understand what the customer wants, and I understand that what they want is not what they're telling me, it's what they're not telling me. They just don't realize that. And so instead of giving people 78 choices, he gave them 4, sometimes 1. And every marketer and business professor is going to be like, it goes against every fucking thing we believe. There's a reason he's him and you're you. No disrespect. No disrespect. You probably did some great things. But he understood that in order to create something great, you had to have a vision, you had to stick to it, and you had to understand that maybe, and in his case, this wasn't really often the case because of how great what he created was, but maybe not everyone's going to get behind it. Not everyone's going to agree with it.
That's another thing. You can't expect somebody to have the same passion or even the same vision or go as hard as you are for a vision that's yours. Some people don't realize that.
Do you struggle with that with like your podcast? Because there's 3 of you.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'll go back to what we talked. I don't know if we talked about it on air, off air. It's about when you go into something with people, you have to sit down and have that conversation prior to going into something with somebody. You have to ask them what do you want out of this. So when certain scenarios happen, you know how to handle it accordingly. But a lot of people don't want to have those conversations. Everybody that I potentially work with or want to work with or brought to me, it's not just we have one phone call and we're about to work together. It doesn't work like that with me. I have an initial, I'll call you and be like, I see what you're doing, whatever. What do you want out of this? What's your end goal? Like you said, Jamarcus Russell, he might have hated football. He might not even want to play it in the NFL. But no one probably asked him that. They just saw, oh, you're talented. You're going.
Exactly, man.
And people get lost in that.
And then he says what he thinks they wanted them to hear.
Yeah.
What they want him to say.
Because it's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending cycle if you don't have that initial conversation. And that goes back to communication. If you communicate at the beginning before you start working with somebody and have those goals in mind that they say they want. It's not about what I want at the end of the day. My job as somebody that's going to push you or potentially manage you or whatever, work with you, whatever capacity, I have to know the direction that you want to go. You tell me where you want to go, and it's my job to get the best out of you so you can get to that point in your life. That's how I look at it. And not many people take that approach.
No.
They think my way or the highway. I've done this system. It's going to work. I'm going to put you through this funnel, and it's going to work that way. And boom, you're going to make the dollar amount, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, is that person satisfied with that? Is that where they wanted to go, or is that where you wanted to go? And it's hard to kind of like juggle that running a business, because obviously your business has goals. You have your own aspirations for yourself.
Sure.
But there has to be some type of common ground where you guys can meet so I reach where I'm trying to go and you reach where you're trying to go. But in the position I'm in is when it comes to marketing or helping somebody with social media or managing them, I'm not successful unless you're successful. So if I'm just doing stuff on my own court without your knowledge, you don't want to do it, and you say, "Oh, I quit because I hate everything you want to do." How does that reflect on me as a person, as a human being, in the way I operate? And I feel as though I had to get over that too when I first started. And people in my circle told me that it's like, bro, you gotta have a little more perspective, and that comes with time. That comes with time. You're not gonna know all the answers. I told you before, I'm wrong a lot of the time, but a lot of the time I'm right too.
But you're willing to put. Here's the thing, though, and this is something that separates you, and it separates a guy like me too.
Yeah.
In mediums like this, we're willing to be public about both.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's and it shouldn't be. It really, it's sad that I have to say that. That's a powerful thing in modern day society because no one wants to be wrong.
Nobody
they're
wants to be
okay
wrong.
when they're right.
Yeah.
But then they're even afraid to be right because they're like, what if it's not right?
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
Yeah. And I got to the point where people tell me I ask too many questions or I'm too argumentative. It's not because I'm arguing with you because I want you to be wrong and me to be right. It's me asking questions so I understand. And people aren't used to that. People think because I'm diving more into a conversation with you that I'm trying to prove a point to you or whatever. It's not that. I genuinely ask questions now to understand where you're coming from. So then as we move forward, whether it's just a normal everyday conversation like we're having, I can understand. I can see where you're coming from and move accordingly. So if we have another follow-up conversation, oh, remember you said this? I did some research on this. You were right about this. I think I should do this. Or my point of view was wrong and what you were saying was right, and what you were saying in that conversation made me go back and look up what you were saying to prove my point. And that happens on our podcast all the time. We'll be debating and someone swears they're right about something, and in the group chat we'll be like, oh, you were right about that, bro. I was wrong. I researched it. And then we'll come on air and we'll probably be like, we'll talk about, bro, I was wrong about that. You were right, bro. I did some research. You were right. I apologize. And we keep going. We go on from it. And I think that's the good thing about our podcast.
I love that. One of the guys I'm thinking of, I had mentioned, my buddy Mike Spear has been on this a couple times. I definitely, at some point, we got to bring both of you in here at the same time. I think you would drive him nuts because of how even keel you are. Like, I don't think he would know how to handle that, so I'm calling him out right now. That's one guy. The other guy I'm thinking of for totally different reasons is a guy whose podcast we recorded back in the end of October, and I think he has been mentioned on all but maybe 2 or 3 podcasts since then at some point, and that's my guy Horo, who's the chief of staff over at 8 Sleep. And a lot of the themes you're hitting on today, I don't need to go through all of them, are so similar to his cyclone of thought. But one of the things I love about those episodes, he was the guy I told you about who was here for 8 hours. Yeah. So we ended up making 2 podcasts because we were just hot. We rolled with it. But he called me maybe like 2 months, less than that, after the podcast. And so many things that he said in that podcast aged well immediately.
Oh, yeah?
Like he touched on section 208 or section 230 on the social media laws, which then, the election was like 2 weeks later, all the fucking shit after that immediately aged well. Yeah. He touched on the private corporation versus public good, which we talked about a bit today. Had fire thoughts there, like just incredible. And then we had a segment in one of the podcasts. Well, the second podcast we were talking about the election coming up, and that was when the New York Post Twitter story came out with Hunter Biden or whatever. Yeah. So we only talked about it for like 4 minutes, but it was a brand new story at the time, and we both like kind of defended Hunter Biden for 4 minutes, and 5 days later he was like, yeah, I think we got that wrong. I'm like, yeah, we did. We'll just kind of shove that one under the rug.
Happens, bro.
But the big one I was pointing out where he called me 2 months later was we did like a 30-minute segment almost just of the conversation in the first podcast we did towards the end where we talked about Andrew Cuomo. And I played devil's advocate a little bit, but the moral of the story is we both defended him. Right. Yep. And so then the second round of ridiculous lockdowns come in December where it's just so fucking over the top. And he calls me up and he goes, he was definitely a little bit like, God damn it, that's on the record too. But he's like, so some of those Cuomo things we said, and I'm like, yeah, it didn't age well. And I'm like, dude, it happens. I'm not going to take it down. And he wasn't asking that at all. Yeah. But I'm like, it lives. Yeah. We're going to be right. We talked about it earlier. We're going to be right. We're going to be wrong. Yeah. But let's talk about it later. So have I ripped Andrew Cuomo in later episodes? Absolutely. Because I got that wrong. Yeah. It's fine. It happens.
And I think that's the thing that separates a lot of people from you and maybe other people in the world is that accountability. A lot of people aren't willing to take accountability when they're wrong, whatever it may be. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's a good thing to have. Like you said, who cares? You said it on air, whatever it may be. You didn't hurt anybody, quote unquote, but you realized what you said was wrong. Your take was wrong. You came and talked about it. I was super wrong about that. Move on from it, bro. That's how I think of. That's how I look at it. Like there's gonna be points in life that happen. There's gonna be points in conversation that you have where you're totally wrong. So what?
And you guys are what, 2 years and like 56 episodes in?
Yep, we just recorded. We actually, 56 episodes. Probably by the time this comes out, 57 will be out.
Okay.
But yep.
Yeah, so you don't think, and this is a rhetorical question, I know you think this, but like for the general population, just to think about some common sense. Mm-hmm. In 56 episodes, you think you got everything right?
Oh, no.
No. You think you even got 80% right? No.
Call Moose and ask him what he thinks about that, and how many times people have ripped into him about takes he has, and he came on air and said it. Like, and that's what I love about him, bro. He'll stand 10 toes on his thoughts, give it on the air, and when he knows he's wrong about something, he'll come on and say it.
That's it.
Shannon does the same thing.
Love that.
You feel me? And that's why I enjoy doing the podcast with them, because they're very heartfelt. One, they're transparent in the way they think. They don't ever hold anything back. They'll argue with each other on. I'll sit there and just be like, I'll just let them hash it out. It's been happening plenty of times. Yeah. And another thing is they're accountable for what they say, and they're not afraid to be accountable for what they say.
You have to be.
Yeah, and I think that allows our listenership to be genuine and people to gravitate towards it, because it's very authentic. It's nothing that we talk about is scripted. We talk. I
love that.
We have topics. We'll put in a group chat. Oh, let's talk about this, and just give our thoughts. We don't go into say, oh, I'm gonna talk about this. I'm gonna talk about this. It's like, nah. I'll bring up a topic. Say what you have to say about it. If I disagree, say you disagree with it. Challenge me on it. Give me your thoughts. Like I said, I'm not always right. They know they're not always right, and we're not afraid to be challenged, because that's how you learn. Yep. And that's how you grow as a person.
It comes across too, because when you see your content, it's very, there's nothing that's canned about it.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm probably like a little bit of a snob about this with podcasts, because I do it, right? And I appreciate the podcasts that aren't this. So the next segment, you know what I mean?
Hate that, bro.
Hate that shit.
I hate that stuff.
You guys don't do that, and so honestly, right away, that puts you way up in the categories for a guy like me. When I come in, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get a real conversation here. So I appreciate what you guys are doing there, and I also, I've said this already, but you know, you've been doing it for a long time too. You didn't do fucking 4 episodes and call it a day. Like, you just kind of keep going. It builds on top of what you're doing here.
Yeah.
It also provides the open forum to have the balls to put your opinions out there and see what comes of it. You know, there's nothing more courageous than that, and it's sad that we have to say that, but it's true.
Yeah.
Like, and I never thought of it that way, but one of my good friends, Kevin Gallagher, who was on this podcast, he was cracking me up. After we finished recording, he sat back, he's like, dude, it takes a lot of balls to do this. And I'm like,
yeah, bro.
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
But he's right.
Yeah.
You know? And so anyone who, like, in your seat who's doing that, and Shannon and Moose joining you with it, I have a lot of respect for that, because you're putting your name out there, and you're putting opinions in the modern day where everyone wants to judge every fucking opinion you have. Expect you to be perfect. You know? So it's great to have fellow guys who do that. But I do want to make sure you talk about the scholarship too, because this is really cool. And like, I'm looking at the clock, because I don't want to make the same mistake I made with Mike Spear and Giovanni, where we were in here for fucking hours and shit. Like, you know, you and I could be in here for another 4 hours.
Definitely, without a doubt.
So we're going to have to do this again. But let's get to the scholarship before we get out of here, and walk me through when that began, who it helps directly, and what the inspiration was for you to do that.
So the scholarship is called the Faces of the Future Scholarship.
Well branded.
Appreciate it. So it started last year. Last year was year 1. I did it out of pocket, year 1.
What does that mean?
My money gave, no fundraising, just gave my money.
How much money?
It was I think it was $300 each to kids.
How many kids?
It was only two to start off.
Still, that's 600. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy, but something.
I wanted to start that foundation is to let people know that we were giving. We were trying to help. It wasn't just, we're not just a platform that wants to put media out there. We want to actually have a funnel that shows kids that there are people out there that support your dreams and allow you to have an opportunity to chase what you're chasing after. You feel me? And I treat it the same way as the podcast. Yeah, the first year we maybe not gave them much money, but as time goes on, as the brand continues to grow, we're able to allocate more and more money each year to help more and more kids. So when it comes to the first year, we did that. I did my own business out of that, And now this year we opened up as a community and started raising money. We actually have a GoFundMe link. It's on the link in my bio.
Oh, we're gonna put that.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the link to the episode
Yeah.
and everything. Make sure I don't forget to do that.
Got you. But yeah, it's link in my bio and stuff like that where you can click and donate. We did that. We started it about a month ago.
And who do you target again? Like, what's the specific?
High school seniors.
But doing something specifically, like they want
it in the creative world, the creative aspect. It doesn't have to be. It's not geared towards like going into college, whatever it may be. But you have to be. It has to be geared towards what your aspirations are and what you're chasing after, if that makes sense. So like if you want to go to college to become a doctor or become a creative person, producer, podcaster,
sure,
you have to put that in the essay. That's what I was going to get to next. We have a certain criteria with the essay. You have to my core values are faith, action, determination. And I say that because faith is what it takes to start something and chase after your dreams, but faith is nothing without action. You have to have action to complement the faith, so you know what I'm saying? And the determination part comes from whatever you're going to have to withstand. And that basically comes from my story, my personal story. That's what it took for me to get where I had to get. Faith, action, determination. So what we do is, and I'm going to announce this on my social media, all that stuff, is you have to write a 500-word essay explaining how faith, action, determination is going to help you get to where you want to get to. Whether it be graduating college, whatever it be, starting your own business, whatever it may be.
Sure.
And then you submit them. We review them.
Can any high school seniors
Anybody
apply?
can. It doesn't matter where you're at.
Okay.
I don't have any limit because
Great.
that's my biggest thing. I want to give opportunity to people who don't necessarily have opportunity.
So you're trying to give money to people who are going after something in the creative space,
Yes.
and you want to see that they actually have a vision on what they want to do,
Exactly.
or at least have an idea of like, hey, I'd like to leverage the education to learn about getting to this.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's
and,
cool.
And I say that because, like I said, after high school, not everybody wants to go to college. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that college is a bad thing, but people have other aspirations. People have other visions. So it's not just limited to people that are trying to go to college.
Oh, wow. So what could the scholarship be used towards that's not college?
Say you need money to go to trade school.
I love this. This just got a lot better.
You feel me? Say you need money to go to trade school because you want to become an electrician and start your own electrician business to go help people. Because people forget, there's plenty of other jobs that you don't have to go to college for, bro.
I'm going to shut up because we didn't get, that was one topic we touched earlier and didn't get to, and we're going to be here for 6 hours if I actually touch that, but that's fucking awesome. I have to say that.
And going back to the amount we give, people on the surface level don't think like $300, $500, even $1,000 is a lot of money, but me being in JUCO and seeing kids that were my roommates having to survive off of $20 a week, I knew that if someone just gave them $300 for a month, that would make their life that much better. So that's where all this stems from.
I almost don't want to call this a scholarship. I think this needs to have a new name.
What would you call it?
I don't know. We got to come up with something.
Yeah.
This is different.
Yeah,
I really haven't heard. I'm sure there's stuff out there that has to be like this, but there's not much.
Yeah, bro.
It's fucking awesome.
And I was just thought like, all right, because people are like, oh, well, that's not much. It's like, but at the end of the day, somebody can use that.
Sure.
You don't know what it is. People, like I said all the time, people come from different backgrounds. 200. You talked about the millionaires. 30 million might not be a lot to 100 millionaire, but
it's not.
Yeah, but in a different perspective, that's a lot to somebody that's not making that much money.
All perspective.
And you can put it down on the grander scale. $300 might not be a lot to somebody, but I mean, it's a lot to somebody else who only gets $20 a week from their parents to survive on. I've seen my teammates eat cheese sandwiches for 2 weeks straight because that's all they have, bro. So when I came down, I could say, if I'm in a position to give back and allow someone to elevate or make their life a little bit easier, why wouldn't I do it if I'm in that position?
Can't say that better myself.
That's how I look at it. So that's a scholarship. If you guys want to check us out, like I said, we're on Instagram at MBT_the1%.
NBT_, that's the 1%. That's the full name. So MBT_the 1%.
It's the IG name.
I'm going to put all this.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it on air because people are listening.
Yep. Just remind me too. So I do that
so Instagram, to follow us on Instagram, it's MBT_the 1%. Okay. On Twitter, it's MBT the Future. And then for all our video content on the network with the Introduction Podcast, Face of the Future Podcast, and any music videos we post from the artists we're working with, follow us at MBT Faces of the Future.
Got it.
So that's where you can get it. You can follow me at MBT Mills on everything.
Okay.
So
I'm going to put all of them in there.
Yeah. Just for people that are listening, people that don't, because I know some people don't read descriptions, whatever it may be.
Yeah, some people don't. You're 100% right.
But yeah, that's
how... You know the business.
Yeah, that's how it is. So that's what we're doing, and we're going to continue to elevate and continue to inspire the next generation. That's the goal. And I just want everybody that's listening to know that it doesn't matter where you are, start.
I'm going to end it. I'm going to end it right there. That's perfect. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Appreciate it.
I enjoyed this a lot. I've been enjoying every single one I have. People come in, the guests are blowing me away. This is TBD or to be continued. Sorry,
Yeah.
TBC. This was fucking great, and what you're doing with the scholarship or whatever we're gonna call it is awesome. I also want to come up with a new acronym there.
We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah. We got. I want to help out with that. That's fucking great. So, Myles, thanks for coming in, dude.
Appreciate you, bro.
This was great. We'll do it again.
Yeah, appreciate
All
you
right,
having
and
me, man.
everyone has the handles. I will again put them in the description so you can just click them and go straight there. So read the description, people. But all of you, everyone else, as I always say, give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace.